Hey guys, tonight we slip into the Roman night with you. You stand in the Subura, where lanterns sway like tame stars. The streets smell of bread, smoke, and cheap wine. Somewhere, a lyre plucks a lazy tune. Your sandals scuff the dust. A cat squeezes past a stack of clay jars. You press close to a wall and the brick gives off day heat. You can almost taste the metal in the air. Yes, you are in the heart of the city, right where the talk is fast and the rules are posted. It is lively. It is loud. It is also a little risky. You probably won't survive this without a yawn or three. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and your local time, too. I love seeing where you listen from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge downhill with the crowd, the Subaru hums. Stalls glow with coals. A barber scrapes a jaw. A baker laughs at his joke. You pass a doorway with a dangling charm. It is a bronze wind chime with a very bold shape. Clinks and sings. People say it keeps bad luck away. You give it a nod. You also try not to stare. Good call. The trade here is open, not tucked in shadows. The doors are not hiding. They invite. Lamps hang over lintels. Minor painted signs show simple scenes. No one whispers like it is a crime. It is work. That is the first surprise. You expect shame. You find prices, rules, and a precise flow of people. You also see guards. Not a lot. Just enough. A night watch wanders by. Buckets swing. Axes gleam. They smell like smoke and wet rope. They nod to the stall keepers. One leans in at a doorway and points to a lamp. The flame is too high. He mimes, "Turn it down." The keeper rolls her eyes but does it. Fire is a big fear here. That much is fact. Rome burns too easily. The watch walks on. You hear a quarrel at the corner. A drunk pounds on a door. He slurs and makes a fuss. The woman at the door does not shrink. She stands square. She says, "Go to sleep." He keeps at it. A neighbor hisses. Someone snaps a finger. The watch returns. The drunk is told to move along. He mutters and leaves. The door stays shut, by choice. That tiny scene tells you a lot. Protection is thin, but it exists. A line is there. A worker can say no. It is not perfect, but it is not nothing. You breathe in garlic, olive oil, and a fish sauce kick. Your nose blinks. You also smell lamp oil and warm skin. Sand crunches underfoot. Up above, laundry flaps like pale flags. The buildings lean in close like they share secrets. They do. This is where much of Rome lives. Artisans, porters, bakers, students, and yes, brothel keepers. The Subura is dense. Julius Caesar grew up near here. That is a mainstream fact you can carry. A doorway shows a painted figure with a purse. Not subtle. You grin. A few steps more, and a wall has a crude arrow and a rude symbol. Do you follow it? You look both ways. You listen to laughter and the clack of dice. Historians still argue whether those street signs point to houses of pleasure or ward off bad luck. Either way, the city marks the path. Your shoes get the hint. Your feet vote yes. Inside one low room, a woman sets a clay cup on a shelf. She wears a bright ribbon on her wrist. She has control of the space. A small stool, a water jug, a basket of coins. She counts them twice. You notice a slate near the door. Chalk marks. Maybe rates. Maybe shifts. Maybe a prank. You smirk. Your teacher never warned you about chalk like this. You step out again. The lane opens into a small square. A street seller waves roasted nuts under your nose. You buy a handful. They are warm and sweet. You think better with snacks. A flute player leans on a pillar and plays a soft riff. Curls over your hair. The night is friendly, also tricky. You keep your purse tight and your eyes open. Look at the door frames. Some have scratches where owners lock them from the inside. Some have little shelves for lamps. Some have a bell hung on a loop. Ring for service? Or ring for luck? You cannot tell. Quirky, yes. That bell is a magnet for your curious fingers. You do not touch it. You want to be invited first. Boundaries matter even now. A pair of men haggle at a table. They point at a cup at the street at the door. You miss the terms. You do see the tone. It is a deal about time and space. Where to stand. How late to stay open. Who cleans the gutter. Business needs rules. Here, those rules fold into the night air. Not hidden. Posted by practice. Kept by habit and enforced by shame and by the watch. You drift past a tavern. A server rolls her eyes at a new spill. She waves a cloth like a flag. A few soldiers bark a song. Their helmets sit on the bench. No weapons inside. That rule is clear. No one wants steel in a room with wine. Your brain agrees. Your shins agree too. Joke 1. Your shins write a thank you letter. Under an arch you spot a little shrine. A doll-sized Venus looks out with a calm smile. Flowers wilt at her feet. A coin shines in a stone bowl. Someone asks her for luck tonight. Someone thanks her for last night. You feel the mix of spirit and street. It is soft. It is also practical. An older woman sells small jars. She calls them skin oil. You open one and sniff. It is thyme and almond. Not bad. She says it covers the smell of smoke. You think of that for later. Remember that jar. We will twist the lid again in a bit. Joke 2. You add subtle perfume buyer to your resume. A young man with a ledger steps out of a doorway. He makes a mark. He looks up at the sky, nods at the moon, and goes back in. You have questions. You will get to the forms and names soon. Not yet. Tonight, you'll see how the street itself supports and backs the work. Lanterns show open rooms. Bells invite or warn. The watch walks. The neighbors judge. The deals stand in public. Feels rough. It also feels like a net. A group laughs at the edge of the square. You catch a rumor. A fancy man got fined last week for breaking a chair and running. He came back with cash. He did not want the shame to spread. Reputation has weight here. Can press on those with power. Not always, but sometimes. That is a right you can see without a law book. You pause at a wall with graffiti, scratched lines, names, small boasts, a number and a heart. One line resembles a price tag next to a sketch. People still debate whether that is a menu or a dare. Historians still argue whether those marks were ads, jokes, or drunk art. Either way, the walls talk. You read them with a half smile. Now the hour grows late. The crowd thins, lamps gutter. Pan sizzles once more and goes quiet. You look back down the lane. It is not a maze now. It is a plan. The trade stands inside the city's order. It runs on custom. It glows under lamps that can be seen from a distance. It is watched. It is said out loud. That does not erase risk. It does not erase shame from some eyes. But it tells you this. People who work here have space, time, and some say, not equal to all. Yet more than you think. You roll your shoulders and yawn. Joke 3. Even your yawn has dust in it now. You touch the warm brick once more. You let the last lamp flicker in your eyes. You step away, but you keep the map in your head. That door. That bell. That watchman's shrug. That purse is being counted in the open. The street itself teaches you. Rights are not just letters. Sometimes they are lanterns, chalk, and a woman's firm no in the dark. Dawn brushes the tiles, and you follow the ledger boy from last night. He walks like he knows every crack in the stones. You keep your jar of thyme oil in your sleeve. The air is cool. A few shops rattle open. Chickens fuss in a basket. You pass under a portico where two men sweep dust like they're racing it. You slow at a doorway with a small plaque. Inside, wax tablets stack like little brown cakes. Reeds sit in a cup. The room smells of ink, beeswax, and yesterday's sweat. The Edile's clerks are awake. You stand near the door. A woman waits at the counter. She folds her arms. Her hair is pinned up with a bronze pin that glints like a quiet warning. A clerk looks up. He taps his stylus. You listen because words matter here. Labels have teeth. Labels also offer a handle. You roll the first word on your tongue. Meretrix comes from Marir to earn, a worker who earns. That is what the letters say. Not a ghost. not a secret. A person who charges money for a service. You weigh that word. It is sharp, but it is also solid. It is the mainstream fact for your pocket. The next word flicks like a whip. Scrotum. It is harsher. Can be an insult. It also means a hide like a tan skin. That is your quirky tidbit. A joke from Old Latin that stuck to people's backs. You hear it and smell leather in the room. You also feel how satire slides into law and then into daily talk. Then prostibula. You say it softly. It hissed out of doorways last night. It means the ones who stand in front. The street workers. The ones at the threshold. It is a place where a word is transformed into a person. You can almost see the chalk line at the step. Prostitutes. Stand before. A small move. A big meaning. The clerk reads from a wax tablet. Name. Origin. Status. He asks the woman if she is freeborn or a freedwoman. She says she is freed. He nods. He writes her public name and the name she will use for work. Stage names help keep a private life private. You think of the ribbons you saw. A name can be a ribbon for your face. The clerk asks where she will work. Inside, she says. Not on the step. He marks it. He presses a seal ring into a dab of wax on the corner. It leaves a sheaf of grain. You smile. The city is bred and ruled. Joke 1. Somewhere, a loaf gets promoted to head of paperwork. You watch her leave with a small wooden tag. It looks simple. It is not a license like, It is a note, a memory aid, and a receipt for this visit. Paper is rare. Wax comes first. Historians still argue whether there was one grand city list or many small street lists, and whether you had to register every worker or only those who asked for it. You hear the doubt and feel okay with it. The room is messy. The city is messier. Lists grow like weeds. Why come here at all? Part of it is safety. If you are listed as a meretrix, the Augustan adultery law plays differently for you. Adultery becomes a public concern under Augustus. That is a significant change. If you are a declared worker, some charges slide off. That can shield you from a jealous neighbor with a long finger. It is not a soft bath, but it is a shield of sorts. And yes, there are whispers that some women declared themselves meretrices to escape strict marriage traps. A fringe move. A risky one. Some did it, people say. Some only talked about it. You lean closer to the counter. The clerk shows another page. Rules. Not deep law. Just office habits. No minors. Do not block the alley. Keep lamps trimmed. Report a violent client. He taps the line about assault. His nail hits hard wood. You feel the point. Infamia is there in the background, like a stain on the page. It lowers rank. Cuts down honor. Says you cannot hold office. You cannot sit on a jury. Your word may count for less in some suits, but it does not erase you. You still own things. You can rent a room. You can make contracts. You can sue for theft. You can file a complaint if a man hits you, cheats you, or drags you where you did not agree to go. You are still a person under the law. The city may roll its eyes, the court still stamps. You step back and feel the smooth wood of the door. A young scribe leans toward you and whispers a joke. We keep better hours than a rooster, he says. His smile is small, a little tired. Joke 2. Your eyelids agree and file a union request. A seller brings in a tray of clay cups. The clerk buys 2. He pays in small bronze coins. He drops them in a tin, then scribbles on a shard. You catch the rhythm, money in. Name down. Time marked. It is simple. It is also powerful, a paper trail before paper. If a client refuses to pay, the tag and the shard can help. The clerk can say, "We saw him. We wrote it. He was here." Not ironclad, but enough to make shame bite. It is sufficient to bring ediles to knock on a door. Ediles are city stewards. That is their old job. They keep markets fair. They keep streets clear. They run some games. They find a tavern for sour wine or bad lamps. That is mainstream Roman civics. If a brothel spills trouble into the street, they can slap it with a fee. If a client breaks a door, they can demand repair. None of this makes life perfect, but it builds a spine of order. You watch as a man steps up to the counter with a worried face. He is either a partner or runs a small house. He points to a name, then to a bruise on his arm. He talks too fast. The clerk slows him down. Name, time, what happened, who else saw? The clerk writes it all. He stamps. He calls in a guard from the doorway. The watchman nods. He repeats the story back. He heads out with a slow step and a steady face. You remember the night watch with the bucket. It is the same weave. Not flashy. Not total. Real enough. You pocket your jar a little deeper. The room is warm now. The sun slips along the floor. You think about labels again. A word can trap you. A word can also lay out a path you can walk. You repeat meretrix. Softer this time. You think of a hand at a door stopping a drunk. You think of chalk marks and bells. You think of lists that can help and lists that can harm. The clerk calls a break. He stretches. He jokes about his back. He tells you that sometimes the names are funny. Yesterday we had 2 Venuses in a row, he says, and a girl who called herself No Questions. He grins. You grin back. Joke 3. You consider changing your name to Later this week. He points to another tablet. It holds fines for false claims. If you lie about age or about forcing someone, and it comes out, you get punished. If a pimp or a Lena pressures someone to register, there are penalties. Again, not magic. Again, not nothing. The city tries to draw lines with short sticks. You step outside with the flow. The street flashes white in the sun. A dog yawns like it might swallow the curb. You walk a few paces and look back at the door. You feel the odd mix in your chest. Names carry weight, but they can also hold you back. Registration stings, but it also gives you a ticket to stand on. Infamy shadows you, but it does not cut your feet from the ground. You still walk. You still buy oil, count coins, and pick your hours when you can. On a wall near the office, someone scratched a wolf's head. Lupa, the old nickname, a she-wolf for a woman, a wolf den for a house. The city likes animal jokes. You hear the echo of it in Lupaner. You stroke the groove with a fingertip. The scratch is deep. The joke is deeper. It bites and it warns. You step back. You are careful with names now that you know how they work. Cart rattles by with amphory. Wine sloshes. The driver sings a line from a play about a clever courtesan. Comedy always gets there first. Law comes after, sweeping up the punchlines. You taste the time again on your wrist. You think of Venus' tiny shrine. You think of a seal ring that stamps a sheaf of grain. Words, marks, and wax. Bread and rolls. Rome runs on both. The ledger boy from last night slips past you with 3 tablets stacked. He nods. You nod back like old friends. He turns the corner and vanishes into the glare. You blink, then head down the street toward the baths. Warm water calls. So does the one next door with a bell. You carry the vocabulary like new coins. You click when you walk. You drift toward the baths with the crowd steam curls from the roof vents. Water slaps stone. Near the door sits a money table. It is a plank on 2 barrels. A man with sharp eyes weighs coins and bites one. He grins at you. The plaza smells like wet clay, bronze, and warm bread. Your jar of thyme oil hides in your sleeve. You tuck it in tighter. Coins clink like tiny bells. On the table lie small, round pieces that are not coins. They glow dull brass. One shows a number. Another shows a lively scene that makes you cough into your hand. The changer flicks one toward you. Spintry, he says. The edge is smooth from many palms. It is heavy for its size. He points at the number again. He winks, as if a joke hides in the metal. You ask what they buy. He shrugs. Time, he says. Or a locker. Or nothing at all. Depends on who you ask. He is not being coy. Historians still argue whether these tokens were for brothels, for bath lockers, or for games. They are real. People dig them up in Rome. They carry numbers and spicy pictures. But their job is not pinned down. You roll one in your fingers and feel the weight of a mystery. A woman steps up to the table. She has a scarf over her hair and a square purse. She spills out bronze asses, small and dark. The changer counts fast. He stacks by 5. He hums. When he finishes, he taps the stack and looks at the sky. Caligula, he says and snorts. You raise a brow. He nods toward the aedile's office down the street. Tax day. Caligula sets a tax on this work. That is a mainstream fact. People call it vectigal ex capturis. A tax on earnings. How they took it varied. Some say 1 coin per act. Others say a cut of the week. Some say the house was paid for as a lump sum, and the pain was passed down. Historians still argue whether the rule hit the worker, the keeper, or both. Your ears collect the talk like raindrops on a bucket. You watch the count. The changer ties the stack with twine. He slips it into a clay jar with a mark on the neck. He scratches a line onto a wax tablet. Name, amount, date. He blows on the wax. It shines. Then he takes a small wooden chip, cuts a notch in the edge, and gives it to the woman. She slides it into her purse next to a ribbon. Receipt, he says. Bring it if they ask. Money in. Record it down. Token out. It is a simple dance. It gives a worker proof. It shapes a little circle of safety. She nods and turns. A watchman strolls near the baths. He does not look fierce. He looks bored. He peeks at the jar and grunts. He leaves a thumbprint in dust. Then he wanders off to tell a pair of boys to stop sliding on the wet steps. Joke 1. The steps ignore him and keep being slippery on purpose. The changer leans in. He says some houses use tokens to keep the front room calm. A client pays at the desk. He gets a marker with a number. He waits for his turn. No pushing. No shouting. When he is done, the worker turns in the marker, and the keeper notes the split. The worker can point to the token and say, "Pay me my share." That small, dumb disc becomes a worker's voice if someone tries to play cute with the coins. You nod. You like dumb discs that talk. You ask about the spicy pictures on the token in your hand. He smirks. He says some folks think the image matches a price or a style. Others believe the scenes are there because no emperor's face belongs in that room. That would not be nice. Again, not sure. Not proved. You feel the puzzle stretch. You set the token down like a hot chestnut. You keep the number in your mind. Numbers help more than blushes. Down the way, 2 aediles clerks set up a stand. They have a box with slots. They have a list and a seal. The jar of tax money comes over with a runner. He winks at you and pats the jar like a pet. He tips it. The coins tumble and sing. The clerk counts. He writes. He stamps the wax with a name with a grain sheaf seal. Bread and rolls again. The city loves the pair like twins. A worker in a saffron shawl steps up. She shows her wooden chip. The clerk compares the cut to a pattern in his box. It matches. He nods and marks her square. If someone later gives her grief, she can say, "I paid." The mark shows it. That does not end all the trouble. It helps. It gives her a thread back to this table, this stamp, this face. In a city this big, threads keep you from slipping. Near the baths, a bath boy waves a chain of little lead tags. He calls them keys for baskets. You see numbers stamped on them, too. They jingle like a flat chime. The bath is a factory of tags, tokens, and swaps. Your brain sees the link. A town like this needs counters to sort bodies and money. Brothels copy what baths do. Taverns copy what brothels do. It spreads. It works. You take a step inside the bath porch. Warm air kisses your cheeks. You watch a man swap a coin for a token to rent a towel. He gets a small square of wood with a cut corner. When he brings it back, he gets 1 coin back and a smile. Tiny deposit. A tiny proof. Your nervous system likes systems like this. Joke 2. You are 1 step from color-coding your sandals. Back outside, the changer shows you a coin of Tiberius. The emperor's face looks severe. He taps it and says, "See, this one you do not bring into certain rooms." He wags a finger. Show some respect. Is that a rule or a rumor? Both live side by side here. The man likes the story. You appreciate how the story uses images to evoke gentleness. It is a soft check on rowdy behavior. Even if it began as a joke, it trains manners. An older woman with bright eyes slides up with 2 small jars. One holds a cheap perfume. One has hair dye. She pays with a mix of coins and a ceramic shard with scratches. The changer reads the scratches. It says she is owed a bit from yesterday's broken deal. He nods and makes her right. She tucks the extra coin away. You stare at the shard. A fractured pot becomes a note. That is your quirky tidbit. Trash becomes memory. The city writes on anything. Under a fig tree, a keeper argues with a loud man. The man waves empty hands and claims he paid. The keeper holds up a token. "This was yours," she says. "You did not give it back." A neighbor speaks up and says he saw it. The Edile's clerk strolls over, lazy as a cat. He hears both sides. He touches the token's number. He glances at his wax list. "Pay," he says to the loud man, "or do not come here again." The man puffs, then pays. He does not want to be barred. Word travels fast in tight lanes. Caligula's tax still grinds in the background. You ask how long the rule lasted. The changer shrugs. "Long enough for us to get used to it," he says. "Later emperors kept parts and dropped parts. That is how rules move here. They do not leap. They shift. The city holds the parts that fill the jars and pad the lists. It drops the parts that cause more riots than revenue." A boy brings a cup of watered wine for the clerks. He sets it down with care. The clerk pays him with a token that shows a palm branch. The boy runs to the tavern and trades it for food and another coin. The owner and the clerk have a deal. Tokens float like fish between them. This web of markers means someone with very little writing can still track and claim. You like that. It is a right that fits in a pocket. You rub your wrist and smell time. The scent cuts the steam and the metal. You think of the ribbon on the purse. You think of the bell by the door. You think of the wolf scratch in the wall. You see how coins, tokens, and lists make a net under all of it. They do not make the workplace safe. They make it less shaky. They make it less shaky. They let someone say, "I paid. I am owed. I choose." A mule brays at a cart and startles you. You hop back. A soldier laughs as he passes. He points at your sandal strap flapping loose. He mimes a stitch. Joke 3, your sandal applies for early retirement. You crouch to fix it and hear one last thing from the changer. He says, "Keep your receipt until you sleep. You never know who you'll need to show." He taps his wax and smiles a thin smile. You straighten and take one more look at the spin tree on the table. The number stares back, the picture winks. You will not solve it today. You do not have to. What matters is how people use bits of metal and wax to claim time, to keep order, and to stand their ground. You step away from the stand and into the warm mist by the bath door. Your skin drinks it in. Your ears hum with coins. Your mind keeps the beat of a city that writes its rights in minor marks you can hold in your hand. You step off the bath porch and slip into a side lane. Steam fades. Dust returns. A bell hangs from a door frame, dull from many fingers. The wolf scratches on the wall and grins at you. Lupa again. You knock once, lightly, and look in. A narrow hall shows small doors. Each door leads to a tiny room with a low stone bed and a ledge for a lamp. The walls feature small, quick paintings with bright lines. You know this type from Pompeii. The Lupaner there has rooms like this. Stone beds, frescoes, names and prices carved into plaster. That is a firm fact, set in ash and time. A woman with a scarf nods to you from a stool. She is not shy. She is not loud. She is busy. She checks a little box with counters inside. She rolls a bead on a string. A client steps out of a room and pays at her table. She counts, splits, and marks. The keeper calls him by name and tells him to lower his voice next time. He blushes. He nods. He leaves. You breathe and feel the rules move, quiet as cats. You glance into one room. There is a straw mat on the stone. A niche holds a clay lamp. A small shelf holds a jar like your time oil. You smile. Someone cares how the room smells. The lamp has a charm on the handle. It is a tiny bronze shape you have seen before. The city likes its jokes. But the charm also calls luck. Keeps the eye away. Keeps courage near. By the hall, a faint line of graffiti curls over a doorway. A name. A date. A short boast. You trace it with your eyes. Historians still argue whether the wall scenes here were menus or just saucy art. You shrug. You know what you see. You see small rooms with doors that shut. You see a woman who runs the front desk. You know a bell for wait and a lamp for open. Space bends to help make work safer. The keeper slides a little wooden tag along a string when a room is taken. When it returns to the center, the room is free. A simple board is a signal like the bath tokens. The same mind lives in both places. Your brain loves that. Joke 1. Your brain wants to open a tiny museum for tiny signs. You shift around a corner and find a latrine at the end of the hall. It is a small bench over a brick channel. Water trickles. Yes, even here, plumbing. The lupanar at Pompeii had this too. The city is many things. It is also clever about waste. You nod at the channel like it is an old friend. Volume rises in the front. Two men argue. The keeper does not rise. She points to a rule smudged on a small board. No shouting, no pushing, no drunk weapons. One man remembers his helmet on the bench and calms down. The other man pours water on his hair and steps outside. The watch passes the door, peeks in, and moves on. He trusts the room to manage itself most days. That is the point. Rights here look like doors, tags, rules on boards, and a keeper who says out and is heard. You leave a coin in a dish by a tiny Venus on a shelf and step back to the street. The air changes. Garlic and wine punch you in the nose. You grin. Popina yawns open right next door. A stone counter holds large clay jars sunk into it. Stew steams in one. Wine sleeps in another. The server ladles thick soup with barley and herbs. Your stomach claps. Joke 2. Your stomach tries to tip the cook with applause. Men lean on the counter and play at dice. A barmaid slides a cup, then wags a finger when a die bounces too far. Keep it soft, she says. I like my cups not broken. Behind her, a set of hooks holds keys and small bags. Upstairs, a few rooms wait with thin mattresses. This is common. Taverns feed you, water you, and often house you. Some upstairs rooms host more than sleep. Historians still argue whether most Papini doubled as brothels or if only a few did. But the overlap is plain at some addresses. You watch a quiet deal. The barmaid takes a coin, scribbles a mark on a shard, and hands it with a key. Room 2, she says. No lamps near the curtains. She says this like a law. It is, in a way. The watch fines for bad lamps. The ediles fine for blocked alleys. The same watch that warned boys not to slide on steps will instruct taverns to trim wicks and lower voices after midnight. Rules walk these rooms like you and me. A small group of sailors crowds the door. The server points to a bucket by the entry. Leave knives, she says. They grumble. They drop 3 blades with long faces. She smiles and pours wine. You saw the same no weapons inside habit in the first lane. The rule slides from place to place and keeps tempers from turning into cuts. It is not a perfect net. It is a net. You chat with a cook. He tells you that the ediles check weights and jars for honest measures. He taps a stack of bronze weights with pride. Suppose a tavern cheats with thin cups and delicate bites. If a client throws a cup and runs, the barmaid calls the watch and names him. A worker's voice counts enough to bring a knock on his door. Again, not magic. Again, something. A young woman with paint on her cheeks carries a tray past you. She is heading toward the theater square. She has that look. Bold. Busy. Ready to sell wine or smiles or both. Your jar of thyme oil tickles your wrist. You follow her. The street pitches up toward the theater, where a stone face grins and frowns from the roof. Masks stare at the clouds. Posters slapped on the wall with titles in big letters. You're considering taking up acting. Joke 3. They want better parts than left foot and right foot. Inside the theater yard, bustle grows. Stagehands haul ropes. An older man tunes a reed pipe. A girl paints a mask with red lines. A mime actress, laughs at a bad pun. She waves you over and asks you to hold a ribbon while she ties her hair. You do, and you breathe her mix of smoke, time, and paint. Performers sit in the same world as the women in the lane. They are both called infamous by law. Their honor in court is cut. But they still sign deals. They still get paid. They still own their gear. They still sue over wages when a manager skips town. You step near the backstage door. A big man sits on a stool. He keeps the drunk out. He lets the patron in if the mima says yes. The rule is not written, but it is there. Choice counts. A gift of wine flows only if she nods. That is the line. A worker sets it. The door guards it. The keeper respects it. The watch backs it if needed. The theater itself is a study in order. Seats stack in ranks. The city assigns places by status. Senators near the front. Common folk up higher. Women have been present up there too, many times and in many locations. Ushers help you find the proper bench. You feel how rules shape bodies in space. They also shape work. A performer tells you that during games, the ediles act as bosses. They pay the troupe. They scold if a joke crosses the line. They also step in if someone grabs a girl by the arm. The show must go on. The girls must be safe enough to go on. This is not soft, but it keeps a frame. A little chest sits by the backstage door. It holds costumes. It holds coins at the end of the day. The mima taps it and says she keeps a copy of her script in there. She also keeps a small lead token from a vendor who owes her food and a terracotta lamp with a comic face. She grins. Her life is gear and gigs. She moves from the popina to the stage to small rooms when she wants. The rules follow her. Not to trap her. To let her cash, rent, and rest. Someone shouts that the patron has arrived. A man with a purple stripe on his tunic nods to people as he passes. He likes to be seen. He gives a coin to the troupe. He provides a stare at the mima. She gives a stare back that says, "After the show, maybe." You watch power and choice ping-pong in the air like a tossed ball. It is a game with stakes. It has lines and it has fouls. On a wall near the gate, a rough drawing shows a goat dancing. It is silly. It is also a sign for tonight's comedy. A goat for a farce. A dolphin for a mime. These little pictures help those who do not read letters. They also give a place a brand. A brothel has its wolf. A tavern has its crater. A theater has its mask. The city is big. These minor signs help you find your way, your work, and your allies. You wander back toward the lane as the pipe starts to sing. The barmaid from before waves her ladle at you. "Eat or faint," she says. You obey. You eat. You feel steadier. Rights taste like stew some nights. Warm and simple. Someone sets a lamp in the window. Someone hangs a key behind the bar. Someone sharpens a stylus. This is how order grows. It grows in rooms, not scrolls. A last quirky note follows you down the slope. A seller offers a little pot of gladiator oil. He swears it is scraped from a champion's skin. He says it brings luck in love. You roll your eyes so hard they do a lap. Still, some folks buy it. Satire makes fun of it. The idea sticks. You tuck the story away. It sits next to your time. It will make you smile later. The bell at the brothel door rings once, softly. A voice answers from inside and says, "Wait." You do. You respect the line. You watch the token board. A tag slides back to the center. The keeper nods. She lets the next person in. The watch strolls by, raises 2 fingers and keeps going. You feel the city breathe. Rooms, baths, taverns, and theaters breathe together. They share rules. They share guards. They share signs. And in that breath, a worker finds a space to stand and to say, "Not now," or "Yes and pay fair," and to be heard. You follow the scrape of a stylus to a shady corner of the forum. A banker's table sits under a canvas awning. A bronze scale hangs like a patient bird. Wax tablets glow brown and smooth. The air smells of beeswax and cold metal. Your fingers itch to touch the neat rows of cords and seals. You don't. You act like you have manners. Good plan. 2 women sit at the table. One is the keeper you met, who has the bell and the token board. The other wears a simple dress and a ring with a tiny dolphin carved in it. The banker nods. He warms his stylus in his palm. He flips open a 3-leaf tablet. You hear the crunch of wax. This is where cash turns into lines. This is where a day turns into numbers. Argentarii, the bankers, work like this in Rome. That's a solid fact. They keep ledgers. They write receipts. They move money with orders instead of bags, so pickpockets go home sad. The keeper speaks first. She wants a safe place for the week's takings. Too much coin in a room draws evil eyes. She slides a small strongbox forward. Iron bands ring it like a tiny fortress. The banker counts bronze and silver. He calls each stack aloud. He presses a mark for each deposit into the ledger. In. He ties a string through the wooden tag she brought and seals it with wax. She stamps her dolphin ring into the blob. He stamps his office seal beside it. Name, amount, day, done. If he cheats, the broken seal will tell on him. If she forgets, the tablet remembers. You watch the second woman lift a pouch and lay out rent for a room. She is a worker who leases her own space by the month. The landlord is late today, so she pays at the bank and leaves a line in the ledger. The banker will hand the rent over when the landlord comes. That means fewer trips at night with a coin on her belt. It means a page can prove she paid. Pages do not blush. Pages do not get mugged. The banker flips to another tablet. A thin boy brings a chest of seals and cords. He strings a triptych through holes at the edge, ties a loop, and warms a bead of wax on the knot. The keeper and the banker press their rings. The wax takes the shape of trust. You feel how that small blob is a promise you can hold. A scribe at the end of the table drafts a lease for a tiny room off the lane. He speaks each word slowly. One room, dry and sound. Rent is due each market day. No fires near curtains. The door lock belongs to the renter. He taps that line. You smile. That line matters. It means she can shut the door and choose. It makes not now stronger than a shove. He adds a clause for repairs. If the roof leaks, the landlord fixes it fast. If he drags his feet, rent pauses. Simple, sharp, useful. The scribe scratches one more line. A small deposit secures the room for a week, in case work slows. Romans call this earnest money. You call it breathing room. The two women nod. They sign by pressing their signet rings into wax. 3 witnesses add strokes with blunt styluses. A barber, a vendor, a man from the bath with pruny hands. This is how Rome holds people to a deal. Not by magic, by many eyes and little marks. You pocket this picture like a coin. In Rome, women can own property, rent out spaces, and run businesses. That is a mainstream fact, strong and steady. In inscriptions, freed women show up as brothel keepers, tavern managers, and landlords. You think of a name carved on a stone. Alina, who left money to her girls and a tiny shrine of Venus. You like that detail. You want her will to work. The keeper leans on the table and asks for a small loan. She wants new mats, new lamps, and stronger locks. The banker agrees. He lists the items as the reason and sets a due date. He takes a pledge as insurance. She lays down a silver bracelet. He tags it and seals it. He hands her a slip of wood with the amount and a notch. She can redeem the bracelet once she has paid. If she doesn't, he sells it. Plain rules. Clear edges. Everyone sees them. You ask the banker about splits. He raises both hands. He says it varies from house to house. Some keepers take a fixed room fee and leave the rest to the worker. Some split the take by shares. Some pay a wage per day. Historians still argue whether most places used a simple 50-50 or if rent plus keep was more common. You watch the keeper and the worker talk numbers like weather. They roll their fingers. They nod at a fare, then frown at a fee, then smile at a small bonus for late hours. Their quiet math is where power lives. A small man with fast eyes runs up with a tale of a client who skipped without paying. The keeper shows the banker the token board mark and a scratch of the man's name. The banker raises a brow. He tells the runner to fetch him if the man comes to cash a coin here. These tables sit like nets in the city. If you cheat, the net knows your face. Shame and closed doors work faster than a slow court. Still, sometimes you go to court. You walk with the women to a basilica at the forum's edge. The floor is cool and the roof is high. A magistrate sits with wooden curule legs crossed. The air hums with talk. A line of small cases trails across the hall. A day worker sues for unpaid wages. A tailor shows a cloak with bad seams. A barmaid points to a bruise and a broken cup. The keeper steps up when called. She lays the lease on the bench. She shows a fractured latch and a rain stain on a straw mat. She asks for a rent pause until the repair is completed. The magistrate reads the wax. He nods at the repair clause. He tells the landlord to fix the roof by the next market day. If not, a fine lands. The clerk notes it. You exhale. The paper words hold in a room with high echo. Joke 1. Your stylist wants hazard pay for keeping up with this many tablets. On the way out, a vendor sells tiny clay money boxes shaped like little houses. They have coin slots and no lids. You must smash them to get your savings back. That's your quirky tidbit. Smash to save. It is neat and a little dramatic. The keeper buys one and tucks it under her arm. For the girl who is saving to buy a share, she says. She likes goals she can hear. You smile. A crack at the right time can be a cheer. You step into a cramped shop that sells signet rings. The owner holds your hand up to the light and says, your fingers look like they want a wolf. You think of the wall scratch. You ask for a grain sheaf instead. He laughs. He says that the sign is for ediles and bakers. You shrug. Bread and rolls fit your week. Joke 2. You try on a ring and suddenly feel like a very small senator of snacks. Back at the banker's table, the worker with the dolphin ring gives an order to pay her lamp oil man from her deposit. The banker writes a note. A runner takes it to the oil stall. The oil man brings back a receipt. No coins move between their belts. The risk stays low. The proof stays high. This trick of writing money to move money is old here. Keeps nights quieter. You ask where most women store savings. The banker shrugs. He points to his ledger first. He points to the little house box second. He points to the floor third. Many hide jars under beds, he says. Some sew coins into belts. Some trust me. Some trust only clay. Historians still argue whether most workers trusted bankers at all or kept their hoards at home. The truth, like stew, has many bits. You taste each and nod. Near the bench, a woman folds a stack of linen and talks about a new lease. She and two friends plan to share one larger room and split the rent. They will pool for locks, lamps, and a guard to sit on a stool at the door. That is property, too. Shared, planned, and used. The banker writes 3 names into one contract. He adds a rule. If one moves, the other 2 have the first choice to bring in a new partner. That way, strangers do not slip in without a nod. The line is small. The effect is significant. You ask the keeper how she enforces everyday rights without waking the vast machine of law each time. She smiles. She taps her token board. She taps her signet. She taps the banker's ledger. Then she taps the shrine of Venus in her mind. I keep lists, she says. I keep allies. I keep offerings. And I keep the watchman's goodwill with a cup of warm wine on cold nights. Simple tools. Soft edges. Steady hands. A boy dashes in with a torn sleeve. He holds a wooden tablet with a smudged seal. He pleads that the rain ruined it. The banker looks. The seal is half broken. The mark is there but messy. The banker sighs. He calls 2 witnesses who saw the deal. They nod. He rewrites the line. He melts fresh wax and stamps again. The system is not stone. It bends. It helps memory when the weather fights back. Joke 3. Your jar of time oil feels like it deserves its lease by now. As the sun slides, the banker closes his ledger with a soft pat. Cords cross over wax like sleepy snakes. The dolphin ring taps the wood once. Happy. The keeper pushes her tiny strongbox home. You walk beside her. You feel how contracts, cash, and property make a gentle fence around a day. It is not a wall. It is not a shield you can break. It is a fence you can lean on while you rest your feet and say, this is mine. This is fair. This is the plan. You pass the bell, the wolf scratch, and the lamp. You listen for leaks and listen for lies. The floor stays dry. The ledger stays true. Tonight, that is enough. You and the keeper roll the strongbox home, and the street turns into a ribbon of cloth. Bolts hang from pegs. Dyes glow like fruit. You brush a corner with your fingertips. Chalk dust kisses your skin. A dyer lifts a jar and swirls saffron water. Smells warm and sweet. Your jar of time peeks out of your sleeve, jealous of the spotlight. Joke 1. Your time applies to be the official scent of every lane. A woman passes in a long dress with a wide hem. A stola. You see the extra band near the bottom, the insta swinging like a low wave. Over it she wears a palla, a long wrap that slides off one shoulder and back again. That look says matron, married, respected. This is a firm fact. In Rome, the stola marks a proper wife. It is part dress, part sign. When she walks by, eyes soften, voices lower, and space opens. Across the street stands a girl in a short tunic and a saffron shawl. It shines like a ripe quince. She pins it with a tiny bronze wolf. She is not hiding. She is bright on purpose. Her hair sits in a soft net. The mesh glints when she turns her head. A reticulum. Some are silk. Some are linen. Some, if you are fortunate, are gold thread. You grin at the gold ones. They look like sunlight trapped in a rope. The dyer says saffron is good for more than stew. It clings to cloth. It smells faint but happy. He taps a bolt of yellow and says, "Dancers love it." He winks and says others do too. He raises a brow and lets you fill in the rest. Saffron shawls and saffron veils float through jokes and poems. Brides wear saffron veils on wedding days. So do some workers on busy nights. Bright color is a beacon. Says this way without a shout. A man in a white toga strides past, wrapped like a cocoon. He is going to court. You watch him step around a puddle like it might bite. A girl near the cloth stall laughs and lifts her saffron edge higher. You ask the dyer about togas on women. He snorts. He says poets tease about women in togas. He means workers and bold girls. He says a toga on a woman marks her as not a matron. Maybe even marks her as in the trade. But he leans in. Was it a real rule? He whispers. Historians still argue whether the toga for prostitutes was law or just a running joke. He shrugs. You nod. The laugh sticks, real or not. Still, the line is real. A stola says one thing. A saffron shawl or a loose tunic, says another. Women choose with care. The watch reads the signs too. A guard will treat a stola like a shield. He will treat a bright shawl like a flag that says she sets her hours. Clothes teach the street how to act. You run a finger along a hairnet. The seller calls it a reticulum and shows you pins. Bronze. Bone. Some are plain. Some have tiny hands at the end, palms up, like they hold luck. The net keeps hair safe, keeps it from being grabbed in a tight room. It also holds wigs in place. Wigs are a whole world. Rome loves hair play. That is a solid fact. You spot one in pale gold. The seller whispers that the hair comes from the north. Some call it German. Blonde is a thrill here. Poet loved to tease about it. He imagined women changing hair like sandals. You hold a ribbon called a vita. Matrons use it to tie hair in sober bands. It lies quietly in your hand. A worker might use a bold band that is bright and soft. A mitra. She might knot it at the side. She might let her hair curl over her neck a little. She might paint her lips with a touch of red. She might dust her face with white. You shiver at the chalky puff. White lead is common. Not smart, but common. That is your quirky tidbit. Beauty can be a little toxic. Rome risks it anyway. You ask the clothman if any law bans a worker from wearing the stola. He shrugs again. He says the stola belongs to the married set. He says the title, Meretrix, doesn't fit right with it. People would whisper. A keeper might even forbid it. But he cannot tell you about a scroll and a line that ban it. This is where custom acts like law. Satire sets the edges. Neighbors enforce them with looks and snorts. A matron stops to buy a pale palla. She smooths it and checks the weave. The seller calls her domina and gives space. A girl in saffron steps up next. The seller calls her pretty and quickly names a price. The matron does not glare. She knows the dance. Both women want clothes that signal truth. One chooses soft colors and covered hair. The other option is yellow, which a passerby can spot in low lamplight. You hear the logic. You see the safety. A clear sign can stop a fight before it starts. You watch a comic actor cross the lane with a stack of masks. His shoes are soft. Some call them Sochi. They are stage slippers. Performers and workers share that easy shoe. You grin. Your feet vote yes. Joke 2. Your sandals issue a tiny demand for more cushy time. A young man at the stall points to a crimson stripe and asks for a bit for his tunic. The seller laughs him off. Only certain stripes belong on public men. Clothes tell ranks. You stick to yellow and simple browns. You do not want to get fined for your fashion. You like your coins where you can count them. A girl with a silk hairnet shows you a box of pins shaped like leaves. She says the pins are fine, but the net is better. Hair is safer tucked. She says a net and a scarf give her a way to hide fast if a client turns rough outside. She flips the scarf over her head in one smooth move. It is like a door. You watch her vanish and return in a blink. A cheap trick. A good one. You ask her about wigs. She laughs. She says she has a German one for fun and a dark one for quiet days. She keeps them in a basket with thyme and laurel to make them smell nice. Your jar in the sleeve cheers. She taps your sleeve like she knows. You both grin. She says a keeper keeps a basket like that near the desk. Clients pay tokens. She picks a look. She steps out the door as one person, then steps back in as another. Clothes are masks. Masks are tools. Tools are power. A boy runs past with a scrap of cloth tied on a stick like a flag. It is yellow. He shouts about a festival next week. Floralia. You have heard that one. Flowers, color, and light jokes. Dancers and mimes wear bright saffron then. They toss beans. They tease. They sing. The city blushes, then laughs. That festival blesses the bright and the bold. The shawls from this stall will fly like birds. You take a turn down a quieter lane. A small shop sells combs. Tortoiseshell. Wood. Bone. A comb of bone has zigzag teeth. The seller says it keeps lice at bay. He winks and says wigs don't like lice. He snaps the comb. Clicks like tiny fingers clapping. Joke 3. Your scalp starts to itch just from hearing about the comb. On a bench by the door, two women argue over a rule. One says a keeper cannot force a girl to wear a specific color. The other says the house has a style and that style sells. They both have points. Historians still argue whether houses ran strict dress codes or if workers chose most of their own look. The evidence is thin. Satire is loud. You feel the fog. You also think about how a wise keeper listens. She may suggest saffron on busy nights. She may offer a hairnet to a new girl whose curls are a handful. She may ban loud jewelry that snags on door hooks. She aims for safe and easy-to-clean products. She aims for what the watch does not scold. You peek into a little shrine shelf at the corner. Venus looks out through a haze of perfume smoke. Someone set a string of beads at her feet. The beads are made of cheap glass, available in blue and green. You think of how a woman might wear them as a joke or a charm. A poet once teased about girls with too many beads. You look at the string and think, not too many at all. You hear a bell from the familiar doorway. The keeper lifts a hand. Wait, she calls. The scarfed girl tucks her hair under her net and adjusts her shawl. Her look says, ready. A matron passes by, palla wrapped tight. Her look says, not for me. The watchman sees both. He nods to each and keeps walking. Clothes do the talking long before anyone else does. You step back into the sun and feel the cloth marks rub your fingers. You have learned the language. Stola and Palla speak of home and law. Toga jokes bite, but they point at the truth under the laugh. Saffron shawls shine like lamps and say, this is a choice. Hairnets glitter like tiny nets of safety. Wigs change faces in a blink. Pins hold more than hair. They hold plans. You tuck the Vita back on the stall. You pat your jar of time like a pet. You smile at the gold hairnet and leave it for a richer day. The wolf scratches near the door, smiling back. It knows the signals too. In Rome, cloth and color are maps. You read them now. They tilt the odds. They warn the rude. They help you stand in a doorway, set your line, and keep your ground with nothing more than a knot, a pin, and a bit of yellow that glows under a lamp. You climb the steps of a basilica and step into cool shade. Wood creaks. Wax smells sweet. A lictor leans on a thin rod. The rod is called a vindicta. The magistrate's chair sits on a low platform. A small crowd gathers. You hold your breath. A woman stands very still at the rail. Her eyes shine like wet stone. Her owner speaks first. He nods to the lictor. The lictor touches her shoulder with the rod. The magistrate says the words that matter. Free. The clerk scratches lines in wax. A friend hands the woman a small felt cap. Pilius. It looks like an upside-down cup. She holds it to her chest. The room hums. You taste dust and hope. This is a real ritual. Manumissio vindicta. Rome frees people like this in front of a judge. That is a solid fact. There are other ways too. Some are by will. Some are by the census. Augustus even set limits with two famous laws so people could not free huge crowds at once. One law caps numbers in wills. Another set of age rules. The simple point sticks. Freedom is a legal business. It leaves marks you can point at. The woman breathes out. She says a new name. She takes her old owner's family name, then adds the name she likes. Many freed women do that. Fortunata is a favorite. So is Fausta. Lucky names. You smile. You like fortunate names. Her new patron presses his ring into a dot of wax. She presses a little ring too. The rings kiss in the wax. That seal is a promise both ways. She owes respect. That is called obsequium. She may owe a few days of work each year, too. Operate. He owes protection. He cannot harm her. He must not cheat her. A simple pair of duties. They will argue the details later, like everyone does. You feel a tug on your sleeve. It is the keeper with the bell and token board. She whispers that this woman has been saved for years. She kept a clay bank under a mat. She brought small coins to the banker you met. She hid a ribbon of silver in her belt. She also received a gift from a kind client. All that coin piled into today's fee. Your mind hears the little house bank crack. That sound is joy. The new freed woman puts on the cap for a breath, then tucks it away. You have seen that cap on old coins. It means liberty. It shows up at Saturnalia too, when even masters wear it for a laugh. Here it is not a joke. Here a door has just opened. Quirky note. Some owners freed a servant at dinner as a surprise. Pass the olives. Also, you're free. Wild but true. You step back into the sun. The freedwoman's friends hug her. The keeper squeezes her hand. A runner brings a small tablet. It has a clause set in wax. No more beatings. No more sales. Clear words. Safe edges. The patron nods. He taps the seal. You like seals. They keep the truth warm. You follow them to the banker's awning. The banker smiles. He opens a ledger and writes her new name. He closes the old page with her owner's mark on it. He opens a new page that belongs to her. She grins. She asks for a small loan to rent a door of her own. The banker asks for a pledge. She hands him a bronze pin. He tags it and seals it. He hands her a wooden slip with a notch. It looks like luck with teeth. A watchman passes and touches his forehead. He saw the ritual. He knows the face now. He will listen when she calls. The aediles will listen too. A free person's voice lands heavier. Not heavy like a senator, but heavy enough to shake a slow clerk awake. You ask what changes now. The keeper answers. She says the freedwoman can marry if she wants. Not a senator, of course. That crowd cannot marry freed women or actresses or workers like her. That is a law from the Augustan time. But she can marry many others. She can sign a lease. She can hire a guard. She can go to court on her own. She can move her savings without a master's nod. She still carries infamia if she stays in the trade or performs on stage. That stain cuts honor. It does not erase personhood. You have seen that already. She also has a patron now. That link can be soft or stiff. He can ask for help a few days each year. She can say yes with grace. If he asks for too much, she can go before a judge. A judge will trim the demand. This is not a perfect tool. It is a tool. The freed woman fingers her cap and laughs. Joke 1. She says it makes her look like a mushroom. You snort and almost drop your jar of time. The jar forgives you and goes back to sulking quietly. You walk to a small shrine near the lane. Liberta stands with a rod and a cap. Someone set a string of blue beads at her feet. The freed woman leaves a coin and whispers her new name. Then she heads to the cloth stall. She buys a simple shawl. Not saffron today. Soft brown. She wants calm for this first walk. By the wolf scratch, a girl peeks from a door. She is still enslaved. She watches with big eyes. The keeper kneels by her and speaks low. Save your tips, she says. Put them in a clay house. Count them on market day. I will match what I can. The girl nods. Her fingers curl like they feel coins already. You feel your chest go warm. Some freed women become owners. You meet one that afternoon. She is older, brisk, and kind. She runs a house with 3 rooms. She owns the lease. She keeps 2 guards on night shifts. She holds a drawer of hairnets and wigs. She has a board for tokens and a jar for fines. She pays her taxes. She pays her girls fast. She knows the ediles by name. She was freed long ago by will. The will said she must not sell wine. She laughed and sold stew instead. There are always edges to dance. She shows you a bundle of papers. They are neat. One is a freedom grant for a girl if she reaches a savings goal by the next festival. One is a rule sheet for the door. One is a note to the banker for a new lock. She points to a line. No forcing, it says. No minors, it says. No knives past the bell. You nod at each line. You like the bell. Historians still argue whether manumission often came with a demand to stay in the trade, or if most women pivoted to new jobs like keeping a tavern, a bath booth, or a rooming house. You hear stories both ways. You see both right here. One woman stays. She likes the pay and the control she has now. One woman leaves the line and keeps books instead. She smiles when a day ends without a knock. You ask about children. The owner smiles and leans in. If a freeborn woman has 3 children, she gets extra rights. If a freed woman has 4, she can even shake off most need for a guardian, old rule. Still matters. Many aim for it. Many cannot reach it. Life does not always listen to the law. But the law leaves a door open. You drift with them to the basilica again. A short case waits. The new freed woman brings a complaint. A man grabbed her shawl and tried to drag her down the alley. The watch saw. The keeper saw. The judge hears. The judge finds the man. The clerk writes the fine in wax. He stamps it with a sheaf of grain. Bread and rules still hold. On the steps, a vendor sells tiny felt caps on strings. Kids wear them like toys. The freed woman buys one. She hangs it by her bed as a charm. Quirky, a little silly, and sweet. A question arises in your mind. What if a patron breaks his word? The keeper answers with a flat look. Then we go back. Then we talk to the judge. Then we talk to his friends. Then we talk to the banker who holds his savings. The net in this city has many knots. You have seen them. Tokens, lists, seals, bells, and neighbors who remember faces. Joke 2, your poor stylist is doing more cardio than a legionary today. You pass the theater square. A mime waves with a smear of red paint on her cheek. She heard the news and blew a kiss. She says nothing tastes better than the first cup you buy with your name. She is right. The freed woman raises her cup at the pop aina and sips with both hands like she is catching the moment. Not everything turns soft in a blink. A freed woman still has to watch for rough men and slick lies. A freed meretrix still cannot marry into the highest ranks. She still wears the old stain in certain rooms. But she can pick up hours more often. She can keep her pay. She can rent a door that locks from the inside. She can save for another girl's cap. The sun tilts. The keeper counts coins at her table. She slides a few into a clay house for a girl who is close to her mark. The skunk is happy. The bell rings once. Wait, the guard calls. He smiles. He knows the rules. He likes them now. You look at the cap in the freedwoman's hand. You look at the wolf scratch. You look at the banker's quiet awning. You look at the magistrate's scuffed step. All these things were built on this day. Not one scroll did it alone. Many small acts did. Many minor marks did. You let that sink in. Joke 3. Your jar of time tries on the cap and declares itself herbs no longer subject. You laugh too loudly. The watchman shushes you with a grin. You press the cap back into the freedwoman's palm. You whisper a soft good. She nods. She walks with a new sway. Not pride. Not yet. Just balance. The kind you get when your feet finally stand on your page in the city's big book, and your hand holds the pen that writes the following line. You walk with the freedwoman toward a smell of incense. The lane opens on a small square. A round altar sits under a vine. A tiny Venus smiles from a niche. Blue beads glint at her feet. You place a coin beside the freedwoman's cap charm. The bronze rings, thin and sweet. The guard from the door pauses, bows to the niche and keeps walking. You feel how a shrine cools a street. Voices drop. Hands behave. Space turns soft. You dip your fingers in a bowl and touch your forehead. The water smells like myrtle. Myrtle is Venus plant. That is a simple fact. Women here braid it into crowns and hang it on little statues. You set a sprig by the coin. You whisper for safe nights, fair pay, and doors that lock from the inside. You add one more wish. May the banker's wax never crack. The freedwoman smiles. She takes a ribbon from her sleeve and ties it to a nail by the niche. Vote like this to dot the city. Small vows, small gifts. If luck comes, you come back, untie the ribbon, and lay a bigger thing down. A comb, a mirror, a lamp, a hairnet with a broken tie. The pile tells a story. It says, I asked, I thanked them. It also says, I belong here. You drift downhill with a crowd that grows louder and brighter. Sellers toss lupins in cones of paper. Musicians tune pipes. Dancers fix pins in their hair. Poster flaps on a post. It says, Ludi Florals. Games for Flora. This is a solid fact you can hold. Floralia blooms in late April and early May. It fills the city with color, flowers, and jokes. It loves the stage. It loves the street. It loves people who wear saffron and smile back. You slide into a seat near the top of the theater. The stone is warm. The breeze smells like roses and lamp oil. The mime you met earlier winks from the wings. The crowd claps in bursts. A herald steps out and throws beans and flowers. Kids squeal and grab. Goats bleat somewhere behind a curtain. You laugh. You cannot help it. Joke 1. A goat tries to eat your program and fails because, good news, you never had one. A troupe dances in bright shawls. Thin tunics swirl. Drums thump. A chant rises from the cheap seats. More! The crowd sings. The dancers grin and give the crowd a little extra twirl. Ovid tells it this way, people say. He says the girls' causes and ways of meeting with more color are daring. Historians still argue whether performers in this festival were mainly workers from the trade or if the crowd stories just grew wild in the retelling. Your eyes say this much is true. The line between stage, tavern, and lane blurs today. The city lets it, calls it joy, not shame. A woman in saffron steps down the stairs with a basket of garlands. She plops one on your head. She plops one on the freedwoman. She plops one on the watchman who has crept up to the top row to peek at the show. He blushes and wears it anyway. Joke 2. His helmet is off, but his dignity is doing just fine under a crown of daisies. The herald calls for a pause, and a small procession winds across the stage. A little altar rolls by on wheels. Flora gets grain. Then Venus receives myrtle and a splash of wine. A girl lifts a clay lamp and holds it high. The crowd hushes. For one beat, bodies and voices rest under a sign of grace. The freedwoman squeezes your hand. Ritual makes a frame. Inside it, you can be seen without being jabbed. After the show, you follow a stream of people to a larger temple. The steps talk under your feet. An older woman whispers, "This is Venus Erycina's day for her. She has kept a promise since winter." Many tell this tale. After a bad year long ago, Rome brought Venus Erycina's worship in from Sicily. They built her a temple on a hill. That is a steady fact from old writers. People say women who work the bright side of love favor her. They leave coins, mirrors, and hairnets at her rail. They ask for charm, safety, and sense. Inside, smoke rises in slow ribbons. The light is gold. An attendant takes a comb from a girl's hand and lays it with care. You see a heap of tiny offerings. Pair of shoes, a bronze fig charm, a small clay money box smashed for the sound of it. You smile at that one. You remember the little house banks and the happy crack when a goal is met. Near the door hangs a bold wind chime like the one you saw in the Subaru. Fastenum charms fight the evil eye. They sit in gardens. They hang on lamps. They walk on chains around their necks. You listen to it clink and feel the hair on your arms lie flat. Ward off, it says. Walk safe, it says. A temple gathers these small defenses and turns them into one big hush. A woman with a veil half off leans in and whispers to Venus Cloacina. You blink. Venus of the sewer? Yes. There is a tiny shrine to her near the forum. That is your quirky tidbit. She guards purity and the flow that keeps the city clean. Sounds odd. It fits. The town is body and water and luck all at once. Even drains need grace. You drift back into the sun. The freedwoman buys 2 cakes from a stall and breaks one in half to share. Honey sticks to your fingers. A girl at the next stall sells little mirrors in tin frames. The tin shows your face in waves. You look gentle. You look lighter. The freedwoman giggles and holds the mirror under her new cap charm. The tin makes the cap look like a cloud. On the first day of April, women bathe a statue of Venus. People say. They bring her to a bath, wash her with myrtle, and ask for a favor. That day is called Veneralia by many. Some also visit Fortuna Virilis and ask her to hide a blemish. Let the men see what is sweet, not what is sore. The joke goes. The wish is old. It does not feel cruel. Feels like stagecraft. You know stagecraft now. You know how a hairnet and a shawl can make a night safer. You pass a crossroads shrine with ribbons tied for the Laras. Children hang little wool dolls for each kid in the house. A larger ball of wool is provided for each adult. This is how the street counts its own. It blesses its names. Pulls you in even if your name sits low in a clerk's book. The keeper sets a small lamp there at dusk. She says it slows hands that would pull or push. People want the Laras to like them. You ask the Mima how festivals change her days. She shrugs and smiles. She says on Floralia, she can shout lines on stage and not get scolded by a grumpy uncle in the front row. She thinks she can sell a song, a dance, or a kiss without someone pretending he cannot see her right to say no. The ritual makes a bubble. It gives room. After the festival, the bubble fades. But people remember a little. They saw you in light. They clapped. That sticks. You tuck a sprig of myrtle into your jar of time. The scents fight, then agree. Joke 3. Your sleeve now smells like a garden that just learned to read. As night draws on, you join a small line at a temple side door. A clerk writes names for a simple thing. A safe walk home in a group. The temple hires 2 boys with torches to walk people to their lanes in pairs. You put your name down. The freedwoman does too. The torches hiss and spit. The boys tell jokes to keep the walk bright. You like this little program. No scroll announced it. The shrine funds it from a dish of coins and a vow from a kind patron. It is a ritual too, just with feet. At the square, the torch boys wave. The bell on the door rings once. Wait, the guard says, soft but sure. The Mima passes, laughing, garland half down in her hair. The watchman tips his daisy crown. The Laras stare with stone eyes. The wolf scratches and grins. The small Venus in the niche looks like she will wink if the lamp flares. You breathe and feel how gods, little and large, lace the city. They bless doors, drains, alley corners, and significant steps. They take ribbons and coins. They give calm and a frame. They do not erase rough hands. They make a space where rough hands feel watched and where your no sounds bigger under a goddess gaze. You like that feeling. You stay in it for one more slow breath. Then you slip your time jar deeper into your sleeve and follow the freedwoman along the line of lamps toward home. You wake to the scrape of buckets. The daisy crown is gone. The watchman's helmet is back on. You follow him to a low brick station. A sign over the door names the cohort. Inside, hooks hold axes and long poles with iron hooks. Buckets line a bench. A board lists shifts in chalk. A sleepy dog lifts one ear. The room smells like lamp smoke and wet rope. These men are the vigiles. Augustus set them up as Rome's night watch and firefighters. That is a steady fact. 7 cohorts are spread across the city. They run to fires. They sweep dark lanes. They listen for shouts and bells. They are not saints. They are a net. You rub your wrist and get time. Your jar approves of early hours. Joke 1. Your jar offers to serve as the official watch perfume and is politely declined. A clerk in a short cloak hands the watchman a small tablet. It lists trouble spots. A tavern with noise. A stair with loose planks. A brothel with a lamp that flared last night. The clerk adds a nod toward the aedile's office. Stop there, he says. Pick up the new rules for market day. You tag along. The aedile's office stands open. A board by the door holds notices. No blocking alleys. No lamps under curtains. No knives inside rooms. Report assault. Report coercion. Fines for lies. Fines for threats. You have seen these lines before. Today they feel louder. You spot the grain sheaf stamp on the bottom. Bread and rolls again. Inside, an aide reads a stack of minor complaints. One says a client yanked a hairnet and ran. One says a keeper pushed a girl to the step after she said no. One says a boy sold bad oil that smoked and stank. The aide sorts them. He marks 3 for a visit. He sets 1 for court. He sends 1 back with a note to make peace and bring a witness. This is how the machine breathes. Historians still argue whether the vigiles acted as real police or primarily as firemen who also shushed drunks. You watch them do both. You watch them carry water and carry small tablets with names. You all step into the light. The watchman posts a new notice at a corner shrine. It warns about a man who broke a chair and ran without paying. The man's name sits there for a week. Shame bites faster than a slow fine. Neighbors read it with soft clucks. You hit the first stop, a pop-ina with bright jars. The keeper bows to the watchman. He checks the hooks by the door. 3 knives hang there, sleepy and safe. He taps the lamp wicks. Trimmed. He weighs a bronze weight. True. He smiles. He writes good on a shard and drops it in a jar. The jar sits by the door like a pet. If a place gets too many harmful shards, the aediles fine it. If it gets many good ones, the watch nods and walks past on busy nights. That nod is worth its weight in sleep. Next stop, the familiar door with the bell. Your wolf scratch waits, grinning. The guard sees the watch and lifts a hand. Inside, he says. The token board shows 2 rooms taken. The keeper sits with her box and beads. A woman in a saffron shawl stands near the desk, angry and steady. She points to a bruise on her wrist. She points to a man outside. The man hovers in the lane like a rain cloud. He says he paid. He says she owes him. The keeper holds up a token. He did not turn this in, she says. He left my room and tried to drag her into the alley. He tore her net. The net lies on the table, ripped like a fish caught in a gate. The watchman listens. He asks for names. He checks the token number with the board. He walks outside and tells the man to stop talking and start listening. He writes a line on a wax tablet. He warns the man that assault brings a fine and that ripping a net and a shawl adds damages. In Rome, hurt to the body and insult to the person both count. There is an action for injury. There are actions for theft and for grabbing with force. He says the aediles can impose a public fine if the lane is blocked and tempers risk a fight. The man puffs up. The aide from the office steps forward and taps the sign by the shrine. It says, "Report coercion." He reads a short rule aloud. No forcing, no dragging, no threats. If you do, you pay. If you do it again, you face a judge. The watchman adds that if he ripped a necklace, he will pay back more than it's worth. Double or more. Rome hates theft with a passion. You feel the air shift. Neighbors stop and look. The man settles. He pays for the net. He pays for the time he took. He pays a small fine to the board. He mutters. He goes. The watchman reminds him that if he shouts at the doors again, he will find a new street. The lane exhales. The keeper slides a bead and writes 2 lines. The girl gets coins. The board receives 1 more notch in the "We Said No" column. You follow the watch to the next mark. A door with a cave canem mosaic grins a toothy hello. Beware of the dog. You smirk. The dog inside snores like thunder. The Aedile's aide laughs. Quirky signs like this are all over Pompeii. That is your odd fact for your pocket. Warnings can be art. At the corner, a small crowd buzzes. A pimp, Alina, scolds a girl who looks very young. The watch steps in. The aide asks the girl's age. The girl looks at her feet. The keeper from your lane puts a hand on her back and says, "She is too young." The aide nods. He tells Lena that forcing a minor is a grave wrong. He says the same for pushing any free person into the trade. Rulers on high said this in stiff prose. One emperor even wrote that a forced woman can break free and that the one who forced her must be punished. Enslaved people could move into it and even be freed by a judge. The aide is no emperor, but he carries their lines like a stick. The Lena spits words. She says the girl owes her for food. The aide makes a face. Debt is not a rope for the neck. He instructs the girl to accompany a neighbor to the office and to remain with the keeper for the time being. He writes a time for a hearing. He writes Lena's name. He warns her to walk softly. You feel the knot in your chest loosen a little. Historians still argue whether cases like this were common or rare, and how often a poor girl got the better of a loud keeper in real life. You keep your eyes open. You keep your hope modest. You have seen both good and harmful shards in the jar by the Popina door. The watch cuts down a noisy knot by a wine stall. He lifts a cup and smells it. Too strong, he says. He tells the man to add more water. He tells a soldier to leave his sword at the bucket by the door. The soldier obeys and grins. Habit saves shins. Your shins cheer again. At noon, you duck into an excubatorium on another block. The walls show a map of the streets with red lines for water routes. A big hook hangs from a beam. Can pull down a roof if the fire runs too fast. A horn sits on a shelf. The clerk says it calls men to buckets. Quirky tidbit. A man tells you they once used a pump, a siphon to push water up. He smiles and pats the bucket like a jealous friend. You watch a case at a basilica later. The man from the morning shows up with his chin tucked. The judge hears the guard, the keeper, and the girl. He finds the man for the grab. He orders him to pay for the torn net and the time. He tells him to stay off that lane for a month. The clerk writes a line and stamps a grain sheaf. The stamp sings in your head like dinner plates. A tougher case lands next. A drunk burst into a room and did not stop when told no. The keeper's board shows his token. The guard heard the shout and broke the latch to get him out. The judge asks if force was used. The watchman nods. The judge nods too. A broken latch is cheap. A broken person is not. The man gets a heavy fine. He may face exile if the situation worsens. In Rome, forcing brings sharp words in old books and sharp pain in a purse. You see the purse part today. You hope the books bite as hard when the man is rich. Historians still argue whether rich men paid the same amount. You see, sometimes yes, sometimes no. Joke 2. You practice your judge face in a puddle, and it looks like hungry owl. You decide to retire from law and stick to walking. You stop by the banker's awning. The keeper leaves a note about the fine. If the man tries to cash a coin here, the banker will hold back what he owes and tip the Aediles. The net tightens where it can. Not perfect, not nothing. At dusk, the vigilas drill with hoses and hooks in a yard. Sparks fly from a pan to test their speed. They run. They shout. They haul water. A boy bangs a pot like a bell. Your heart jumps. Then it slows. You think of lamps trimmed low in rooms with straw mats. You think of doors that lock from the inside. You think of knives on hooks and names on boards. You think of a bell that says wait and a guard who answers. Night slides in. The watch posts two men at a crossroad. They trade jokes with the torch boys you met after Floralia. One boy flips your myrtle sprig from hand to hand like a coin. He tucks it behind his ear. Your jar of time gets jealous again. You pat it. It sulks. Joke 3. Your jar files a complaint with the Ediles for lack of attention. You walk one last loop with the watchman. He taps a shutter here. He hushes a song there. He stops a hand from grabbing a wrist. He lets a laugh roll when it is harmless. He writes a name when it is not. The night is not soft. The night is not wild either. Small acts hold it together. By buckets. By axes. By boards with token numbers on a string. By a wolf scratch that watches a door. By a woman who says no and a city that, on more nights than not, backs her with a nod, a fine, and a path to a judge if needed. You pass the shrine of Venus in the niche. The blue beads shine. The coin dish sings once as someone pays a promise. You hear the bell at the door. Wait! The guard calls, calm and sure. You know the following note tonight. It is a knock if help is needed. It is a pen on wax if memory is required. It is asleep in a room that smells like thyme oil and clean lamps if luck holds. You breathe. You move on. You follow the river until the air turns salty and loud. The docks breathe like big animals. Ropes groan. Masts creak. Gulls nag everyone. Tar, wetwood, and fish sauce punch your nose. Your jar of time dives deeper into your sleeve and files a smell complaint. Joke 1. The garum wins the case in one sniff. Men in short tunics haul sacks from barges. A crane creaks as a wheel turns and lifts a basket of grain. Warehouses, the Haria, rise in rows with dark mouths for doors. This is how Rome eats. This is how Rome ships. Ostia and Portus operate continuously. Portus, the newer harbor, wraps the sea in big stone arms. Claudius and Trajan made it. That is an apparent fact. You feel their weight under your feet. You step by a stall with wine, bread, and a dish of olives. A woman in a saffron shawl leans on the counter and watches the quay. She does not rush. She picks her moments. Sailors spill off a gangplank and head for food, baths, beds, and talk. Pay just came in. You can hear it in their steps. Bronze clinks. Voices rise. People haggle faster on payday. A sailor spots the saffron. He tips his cap. He tries to talk like a prince. She smiles like a teacher. They step aside under a shade. You drift a little closer. You hear how a deal sounds here. Time, place, price. No alley. No boat decks. No late night shouting. Inside only. Lamp low. Token first. The woman points to a chalk sign. The numbers sit in a neat list. They match the board, you know. Your brain draws a line between the river and the lane. Same rules. Same tools. Less dust. More gulls. Pompeii scrawls show prices. 2 asses. 4. 8. Varied. That is a solid little fact. But faces change numbers fast. Here at the docks, a fresh ship and full pockets can lift rates. A stormy day can lower them. The chalk erases easily. The woman rubs out a line and writes a new one. She nods to the sailor. He nods back. He pays with a token from a desk near a door. He smiles and does not push the rules. He prefers a warm room to a fight. You walk along the quay. Fullers scrub clothes in tubs with urine that is old. The smell makes your eyes water. Vespasian taxed this stuff, people say. Money does not stink, he joked. That is a famous line and real enough. Quirky, gross, and valuable. A fuller wave reveals a clean tunic that was once the color of fog. You pretend to breathe through your jar. Your jar pretends to be brave. Sailors talk in 3 languages at once. Greek, Latin, and river slang. You catch words like no weapons inside, key, lamp, and guard. The signs carry far. Ediles walk the quay at market time and read weights. The vigilas check buckets. The same grain stamp sits on a notice nailed to a post. No blocking alleys, report assault, trim your wicks. Bread and rules even at the water's edge. A keeper, arrives with her strongbox and a guard. She rents a small back room in a warehouse row. Dry. Safe. Close to the quay but not on it. She checks her door. She checks her cell. She hangs her token board. The bell's weight feels good against the noise. The guard leans with his arms crossed and a soft smile. The smell of tar cannot push past that calm. A sailor tries to bargain for the quay. He points at his boat. He thinks the breeze is a perk. The keeper shakes her head. She taps inside with her finger. Boundaries are clear. Street work is not the same as ship work. The law gets murky when it comes to wood that rocks. So the house sets a line inside the door. This is the safe zone. This is where the lamp shows consent. This is where the token returns. She does not move the line for a view. You grab a cup of watered wine and watch a long rope walk. Men twist hemp down a lane as long as a dragon. The twist hums low and steady. Your sandals want to try rope work, but then they remember they are busy being sandals. Joke 2. They apply for sea duty and get denied for having no toes. You leave the river and climb to red brick walls that slice the sky. The Castra Praetoria stands like a square mountain. Tiberius and his right-hand man, Sejanus, established this place. The walls still hold. That is a hard fact. Inside, the emperor's guards drill, shout, and shine. Outside, a small town clings to the bricks. Stalls, shrines, and rooms. This is a vicus. People call the bigger ones canabi by legionary forts. Traders live here. So do women with shawls and hairnets who know a schedule by heart. Payday in a camp is a tide. It floods, then fades. A soldier's stipend finds 10 hands fast. Food, boots, charms, dice, and beds. A line forms at a door under a wolf scratch that looks very sure of itself. A sign shows a simple rule. No swords inside. A soldier hands his gladius to a boy who hangs it on a hook by the bell. Habit saves shins again. Your shins send flowers. A centurion walks by and everyone stands straighter. He glances at the sign and nods. He likes a door with rules. He prefers not to hear about a brawl that turns into a trial. Army discipline is strict. If a soldier grabs the stick, it falls. If he breaks a latch to get what he wants, pay can be docked. He can find himself on ditch duty. Or worse, you do not wish to worsen. He does not want the worst. The house points to its board. The soldier points to his head. He will behave. You hear a quiet talk about wives. Soldiers in this age are not supposed to marry. That is a law. Augustus said it. It lasts until a later emperor eases it. Men find a way, of course. They make homes outside the walls. They call their partners by kind names. They raise kids the same. The word contubernum floats in the air. It means sharing a tent. It is an old word. It fits a life not written in bright ink. Boundaries again. The wall is one. The vows inside it are another. Historians still argue whether brothels stood inside forts or if the trade kept to the canabi. Finds hints both ways, depending on the place. You look at the gate and the guard and think a door just outside is the safer bet. The centurion thinks so too. He tells a young man to remember the line. The man nods so hard his helmet almost falls. You step into a stall that smells like new leather. Belts, boots, scabbards. A worker with a bronze pin in her hair flips open a ledger and notes a sale. She runs side jobs. Sewing. Mending. A warm room on cold days. She takes tokens and keeps them neat. Her guard sits by the door. He folds his arms the same way the other guard does. He is a cousin. He likes good rules as much as bread. A soldier in a dusty cloak tries a fast move on the price. He says he can pay half now and the other half later. The woman smiles. She points to a mark on the board. No delayed pay on stipend day. She can change that rule next week. Not today. He laughs. He pays. He gets a fair bit more time for being polite. She likes being polite. She writes it as a note and hangs it under the board. Good words get extra minutes. That is a soft, smart trick. A runner from the aedile's office brings a list of names to the camp gate. Men who broke chairs. Men who shouted at doors at the docks. Men who tried to bring knives inside. The camp prefect reads it. He posts a note. No leave for those men until fines are paid. The net pulls tight across the water and the wall. You hear the twang and smile. Near the shrine at the corner, a small offering sits to Mars. A tiny shield, a tiny spear, next to it a wreath for Venus. Red rose petals droop like sleepy eyes. The mix feels right. War and love share streets here. You put a coin in the dish. It rings like a shield tapped with a ring. A boy tells you a story about the Navy at Misenum. Sailors rush the town on shore day. They fill taverns. They love songs. They love saffron. The base sets a curfew. The watch locks the gate at a set hour. The boys with torches you met after the Floralia walk the final rounds. They sing rude songs softly. People laugh. People go home. Order returns like a tide that knows its way. You ask about lines that no one crosses. The guard by the bell says 3. No minors. No forcing. No swords. You add one more. No boat decks for business. He nods. He knows why. A deck is slippery. A deck is a place where an evil man can say the river took a thing when he took it. Inside the door, the token and the bell say the river stays outside. Boundaries keep stories clean. A matron walks past with a basket and a face that says, "Not for me." The soldier steps aside. He says domina with respect. The woman with the bronze pin smiles. Signs work. Clothes work. You saw that in the cloth lane. You see it again by the wall. Fabric lines. Chalk lines. Brick lines. Each teaches someone how to stand, how to speak, and how to stop. Joke 3. Your brain starts drawing a map labeled, "Here be gulls. Here be guards. Here be garum." You wish for a tiny flag that says, "You are here," and also hold your nose. As dusk pulls pink across the sky, you walk back toward the river. The quay quiets. The camp darkens. Lamps rise in windows like small moons. A centurion passes and nods at the guard, The guard taps the bell with a finger. "Wait," he says out of habit and smiles. The sailor from the morning steps out of a door. He drops a token back on a string. He thanks the keeper. He leaves his knife on the hook until his feet hit the street. He picks it up. He walks steadily. He hums. The rules held him like a fence. You breathe easier. This city draws lines in many ways. Some are hard like walls and gates. Some are soft, like shawls and bells. Custom sets many. Law backs enough to matter. Together, they make a path you can walk. They create a space where a price is a choice, and a no carries weight that folks respect. You stroke your jar of time. It forgives the fish sauce. The wolf scratches at the door and grins at you again. You grin back and keep moving along the edge where city, river, and camp lean into each other and hum. You leave the quay and climb a wooden stair. Tilts a little. The rail is smooth from many hands. Upstairs, a door shows a neat scratch of a wolf. The bell hangs quietly. You knock. A key turns. The room smells like warm bread and clean lamps. A clay stove glows, a pot hums. A shawl hangs on a peg. A hairnet dries in a bowl. Your jar of time peeks from your sleeve like it owns the place. Joke 1. It wants its name on the lease. She calls this a kept apartment. Not grand. Safe. The window looks over a quiet court where children chase a ball of rags. 2 stools. A narrow bed. A chest with a lock. The chest has a wax tag tied to it. The tag bears her signet and the banker's grain sheaf. Bread and rulers live even in a small room. She takes down a box and opens it. Inside are little slips of wood, each with a notch. "My basket days," she says. She means her allowance. Romans call a daily gift a sportula when a patron hands it out. This one is weekly. Coins, oil, bread, and sometimes a tiny cheese. She keeps the notched slips like receipts. If a week goes wrong, she shows a slip. The patron makes it right next time. It is simple. It works. On the table sits a tablet with lines. She reads them to you. Rent paid by him. The door lock belongs to me. No street hours while this lasts. 2 nights a week are mine to rest. If he ends it, I keep the bed and the lamps. You nod. This is not a wedding. There is no dowry. There is no wife's title. But there is a plan on wax and a door that locks from the inside. You ask for the word for this bond. Concubine is the word. Concubina. It is plain and old. Roman law knows it. That is a solid fact. Concubinage is a legal union without marriage lines. Most of the time, the man is free. Often, the woman is a freed woman. He cannot be married and keep this at the same time. The jurists say one woman at a time, not 10. Not with a wife too. A senator cannot marry a freed woman or an actress by law. He can, however, live with her as a concubine. Status bends the road. People use the bend. She shows you a ring, not a wedding band. A simple seal with a dolphin, like the keeper's ring. She wears it to stamp notes for the banker and the oilman. She keeps her property. He does not touch her chest. If he gives a gift, it is hers unless the tablet says loan. Families sometimes fight over gifts in court. They say a woman charmed a man. They say he was weak. Historians still argue whether courts capped gifts to concubines in the early empire or if strict limits came later. You see this much today. The banker writes clear notes. The chest keeps quiet. The seal keeps the truth. A knock sounds. A man steps in. He leaves his shoes by the door. He hangs his cloak on the peg under the shawl. He does not bring a sword. He nods to the bell and then to the stove. He knows the rules. He greets you like a neighbor and sits on the stool that wobbles less. He smells like ink and bay leaves. He works with contracts, he says, and keeps one here too. He taps the tablet. He says, "We wrote this together." He brings a small basket. Bread. Figs. A coin wrapped in a string. A sprig of myrtle for the niche. He sets them down like a ritual. He is not a husband. He is a patron of one woman in one room. The word patron sits in many places in Rome. Here it means steady support, not legal master. If he hits her, she can go to a judge. If he locks her in, she can shout to the watch. If he steals her things, the aediles can fine him. She has neighbors. She has the banker. She has the keeper with the bell. The net is closed. They talk about dinner. He chops leeks. She salts fish. You pour wine and water and sit by the window to be small. Their talk is easy. He asks about the theater. She asks about a case. He laughs at the part where a landlord tried to count a broken latch as a window. Joke 2. You watch the leek fight back against the knife and lose with dignity. On a shelf sits a small lamp shaped like a foot. That is your quirky tidbit. Lamps came in many shapes. Feet, boats, masks. This foot lamp brings good fortune to the room. For steady steps, she says. It glows warm and silly. You like it. The pot on the stove size. You ask if she ever plans to marry. She shrugs and smiles. She says it is not simple. A legal marriage comes with a dowry. Comes with clan duties. It opens some doors. Closes others. And there are the Augustan rules that poke couples about kids. Those laws nudge widows to remarry and citizens to make babies. They exclude actresses and some women in the trade from certain marriages. A senator must be careful. A freed woman must be cautious, too. Some couples keep this path instead. Some later wed. Some never do. Historians still argue whether concubinage was a step to marriage for many or a stable end on its own. Children change the heir. If a couple in this room has a child, that child is free. The father can raise the child at home. He can leave gifts in a will. But the child is not the same in law as one born to a legal wife. Not by default. Later emperors played with rules. Earlier ones do not. Still, a house can wrap a child in love without a scroll. At 8 or 9 days, families hold a naming day. They hang an amulet on a cord for a freeborn child. A bulla for a boy. A small charm for a girl. You have seen little hands grab at them. Some natural children got the whole little ceremony anyway. Historians still argue whether that was common or rare. You picture a baby fist and decide the bulla wins no matter the rule. You look at the chest again. He gave her the bed. She bought the lamps. He pays the rent to the landlord through the banker. She buys food, wigs, and oil. He adds gifts on festival days. She keeps a clay house bank under the bed for quiet goals. If they part, she keeps her things. He keeps his ring. The bed stays. The lease ends, and she picks her hours again if she wants. Feels soft. It is not much. It holds. Next door, a different model lives. A concubine shares a larger house with her man. The matron left years ago, or never was. The concubine keeps keys at her belt. A ring of bronze clinks when she walks. That sound says she runs the pantry and the linen chest. She hires a girl to sweep. She pays her wages from a pouch with a knot in it. She greets the fish seller and the baker by name. She offers you a cup in a quiet kitchen where the window shows a bit of sky. She is not a wife. She is also not a shadow. The household fits around her. You sit while she tells you how two households weave. On festival days, she sends gifts to the man's legal kin. Figs, a little perfume, a lamp. They send back bread. On naming days, she sends oil to the shrine. On Floralia, she wears saffron and laughter. On Veneralia, she washes a little Venus with myrtle. The rituals she keeps inside bleed into the street and back. They make a ring around her door. You ask what happens when a man's family snarls. She lifts a brow. She says, "Then I keep neat records." She shows tablets for gifts and rent. She shows the banker's seals. She shows the edile's notice about no forcing and no taking. She shows a letter from a neighbor who saw a push and a fine. She has the net, you know. She has a face that nods when she speaks. She tells you of a stone in a far cemetery. It says, "To my well-deserving concubine." It lists the years they lived side by side. Thanks her for her care. You hold that in your chest like a warm lamp. It does not make the bond equal to marriage in law. It makes it real in love. The man at the table ties off the basket string. He cleans the board. He kisses the myrtle and goes. He leaves his shoes by the door a moment longer. He forgets them and returns with a sheepish grin. Joke 3. You consider starting a side business called Lost Sandals Anonymous. The hallway smells like stew and old wood. You pass a matron at her door. She carries a bowl and a face that says she has seen every kind of neighbor, and nothing shocks her now. She nods to you, and the wolf scratches. The wolf grins back. You step out into the court. Lamps blink on. A boy kicks the rag ball and misses by a mile. Your jar of time wheezes from the heat and then settles. You think about keys on belts, wax on tablets, beds that stay, and lamps that glow low. You think about men who hang cloaks and leave swords at doorways. You think about women who choose a quiet kitchen instead of a loud lane for a season or for good. The city gives these rooms a shape. It gives them words, provides them with nets, not soft blankets. Enough string to tie a life together and to pull help when hands grow rough. You like that thought. You keep it as you turn the stair and slip back into the street where bells, signs, and small plans keep beating like a steady heart. You slip back into the street, and the beat picks up. Bells blink, chalk scratches. A door squeaks and then clicks shut from the inside. You drift toward a corner pop-ina where steam fogs a little window. The barmaid you know flips a loaf, salts a pot, and checks a hook board. She runs her fingers over a row of wooden discs. Each disc is a cloak token. A number is cut into the edge. She smiles. She likes order more than luck. She is more than a barmaid. She is a hub. She pours. She books. She knows who is kind and who pays slowly. She buys oil cheaply in bulk and sells it dearly by the spoon to girls who forget their jars. She also keeps a sack of combs, pins, and little mirrors under the counter. Side jobs. Side safety. You see why this room hums. The Mima you met swings in with a grin and a mask in her hand. The mask has a red mouth. She leans on the counter. She and the barmaid bend over a tablet. Tonight there is a small dinner at a merchant's house. The mime will sing 3 songs and tell 2 jokes. She will not stay late. She will not drink more than 1 cup. Half pay now, half at the door. The barmaid will send a boy with a lamp to walk her home. She takes a small fee for being in the middle. Everyone signs with a press of a ring. Bread and rules even for a song. Actors and mimes form guilds. The city calls them collegia. That is a steady fact. They help book shows, bury members, and defend pay. They also meet in back rooms like this. A man at the third stool says the guild head argued with the ediles last week about wages at the games. It worked. A few more coins slid across the table for the troupe. You hear the pride. The barmaid wipes her hands and shows you a chalkboard. On one side, she lists stew, wine, nuts, and dates. On the other hand, she keeps a no-serve list. Names with little marks. A man who throws cups. A man who steals cloaks. A man who whispers threats. She shares the list with the keeper of the bell. The keeper shares back. This is how a street keeps itself safer without a trumpet. Quiet lines. Quick chalk. Your friend opens a basket. Inside, little packets of perfume slide around like silky fish. She sells them after shows. She buys cheap from the oil man and adds a twist of mint or thyme. You show her your jar. She laughs. She calls it our house blend. Joke 1. Your jar tries to negotiate a brand deal and gets paid in compliments. She also sews. Between rehearsals, she stitches reticula and ties ribbons. She can create a silk net that doesn't catch on pins. Keeps hair safe. It hides fast. She sells 2 today to girls who pop in for wine and a chat. 1 pays in coin. She pays with a token she earned by singing at the same tavern last week. The barmaid swaps the token for stew and a hug. Tokens float here like leaves on a pool. They touch many hands and keep the peace. On a shelf sits a cup of little bones. Knuckle bones. Astraggly. People toss them for dice games. They also string them into charms. The barmaid says a girl wore one on a bracelet to bring luck at cards. Quirky, small, and sweet. She shakes the cup. Clacks. Sounds like soft rain. A man in delicate sandals peers in and asks if the Mima will perform at his dinner. The barmaid steps in front like a guard dog with a kind face. We books only, she says. No last minute. Pay half now. He blinks. He pays. He gets a small wooden slip with the time carved into it. He shows it at the door tonight. He does not get to argue later. The slip speaks for him. You ask about private rooms. The bar keeps one at the back for quiet talks. A seamstress uses it during the day. She hems togas and fixes dyed shawls. At night, a player leaves a lyre there to keep it safe. The Mima sometimes warms up there when the theater is full. The keeper with the bell borrows it when rain hits and her roof leaks. The barmaid keeps a ledger for the room. She charges a few bronze coins an hour and pays the landlord a cut. Rent, food, music, and little sales together make her balance steady. A young singer wanders in with a bruise and a brave chin. The Mima checks her mask and her wrist. The barmaid pours water with honey. They add the young singer's name to their whisper list. Not a scroll, a memory chain. Do not book him, they say of a loud patron. Do not serve him without a neighbor. They pass the word to the theater boys, the torch boys, and the watch. When the man shows up later, no one wants his coin. That hurts more than a scold. You walk to the theater yard. A tightrope is up between posts. A woman practices arms wide, smile wide. She is a petarista, an acrobat. She sells garlands between shows. She also dances at dinners. She keeps her coins in a belt with hidden loops. She learned about hidden loops from the barmaid. The barmaid learned how to keep a crowd from a stagehand. Jobs bleed into each other. Skills jump the fence. The theater barber trims a player's beard and then sells a cheap depilatory to a girl who likes smooth arms. He mixes resin, ash, and a little oil in a bowl. He knows this recipe by heart. He also knows who to call if a girl needs an escort after a late show. He points to the boys with torches. The boys waggle their lamps like puppies. You bite back a laugh. Crowds love pantomime stars. Some get so famous that crowds fight over them. That is an authentic slice of Rome. The city sometimes bans shows after riots. The prefect scolds, then lifts the ban when tempers cool. A star can whisper in an ear at court. A star can also get exiled if he pokes the wrong man. Fame cuts both ways. The Mima shrugs. She prefers steady to star. Historians still argue whether women could join guilds as full members or only as helpers and patrons. In some stones, freed women show up with titles. In others, their names appear on the side. You squint at a worn plaque by the stage door. You see men's names in bold. You know a woman's name in small letters. You sigh and then you smile. Small letters still scratch stone. You swing back to the Pop-ina. A chalk sign outside says, "No credit today. Festival tomorrow." The barmaid does this before big days to keep coins on hand. She sets a small bowl on the counter. It holds nails, pins, a button, and a tiny charm. It is a lost and found. She charges 1 bronze to get something back. She pays a fine if she keeps it too long. The Ediles check. Her bowl stays light. 2 men ask for a pair of singers for a banquet. The Mima shakes her head. She is booked. She points to a friend who does comic scenes with a donkey mask. They swap names and set terms. The barmaid notes it and takes a small fee. She does not waste her network. She grows it. A brothel keeper slides in with a basket of stew. She swaps bowls with the barmaid. She has lent her big pot in the past. Now she borrows the bar's string of bells for a festival booth. She will sell nuts and oil near the theater gate and pass a little packet of familiar perfume if a girl taps twice for help. Side hustles feel like vines. They climb, coil, and bind places together. You ask how much a song pays. The mime shows a hand. 1 to 4 asses, she says, depending on the crowd. A big house for a rich man can pay a denarius. That is a good day. A bad day pays in stew and a nap. She likes good days. She keeps a clay house bank for lean ones. She smashes it at New Year's with a spoon and laughs like a kid. You smile. You like the smash. A sailor steps in. He wants a letter written. He cannot write. The barmaid can. She keeps her hands neat from copying menus. She writes to a girl in the Subaru. She writes that he is safe and that he will bring a comb. She charges a small fee and stamps the back with her seal. A letter with a seal looks like it matters. It travels more safely. The mime reads the lines aloud as she writes. That is part of the service. Voice makes words trustworthy. A seller of dice hovers at the door. The barmaid points at the hook board. "No gambling inside," she says. "Not today." The seller shrugs and clicks his knuckle bones. He will try next door. She runs the tone in this room. She sets the mood. Mood is money. Money keeps guards at the doors and boys with lamps on the path. By dusk, the dinner call comes. You tie a scarf because you like to match the party. The Mima picks up her mask, her packet of perfume, and her seal. She checks her shoes. Soft, not showy. She checks her lines on a chalk shard. 2 jokes, sweet and straightforward. Joke 2. She writes "Don't trip" at the top and underlines it 3 times. At the merchant's door, a porter checks the wooden slip and the tablet with terms. He nods. He leads you in. The Mima sings. The room softens. She refuses wine after 1 cup. She takes the second half of her pay before the last song. The host angles for 1 more, and she says yes for an extra coin. She sets the line with a laugh and a bow. The house claps, the coin clinks. You breathe easy. On the walk home, the lamp boys tell a joke about a goat, a sailor, and a watchman. You groan. You laugh. You pass the Edile's board. The grain sheaf stamp looks smug in the lamplight. The wolf scratches near the door and smiles like it knows tonight was tidy. Your jar of time leans on your wrist like a sleepy cat. Joke 3. It now claims to be your manager and asks for 10%. Back at the Pop-ina, the barmaid counts. She makes 3 piles. 1 for wine, 1 for stew, 1 for rooms and a few sales. 3 streams. She taps the piles and smiles. She says the quiet part out loud. More than 1 job means less fear, she says. If a show falls, I still pour. If a slow night hits, I still sew. If the watch finds 1 thing, I pay with another. She winks. She points to the hook board, the chalk, the bowls, and the bells. Small tools. Many doors. Neighbors you can call by name. That is leverage. That is how you stand straighter when the city leans. You lean on the counter and sip sweet water with herbs. You watch the Mima write a note to thank the host. You watch the barmaid pack 2 extra nets for a girl who tore 1 last week. You watch the keeper with the bell trade stew for lamp oil. You watch a guard test a bell with 1 soft tap. Wait, he says, smiling. You smile back. You like this web. It looks fragile from far away. Close, it feels tough. It feels like the kind of net you want under you when a step slips and the night sways. You wake to chalk dust and coffee brown wax. The Popina door still smells like stew. The bell is quiet. You drift to a booth near the forum, where a scribe sits like a spider at the center of little strings. Wooden tablets lean in piles. A basket holds thin rolls of papyrus. A box of seals glints. Your jar of time peeks out and sighs. Joke 1. It wants to be listed on the scribe's price board as Aromata, 1 sniff. The scribe taps a tablet. He says, Labelli today. He means little papers, petitions, notes, receipts. Rome loves small documents. He ties a cord through 2 wax leaves and warms a blob of wax with a coal. He presses his seal. Done. 1 libellus holds a report for the ediles about a loud tavern. 1 has a simple complaint about a ripped hairnet. 1 is a tax receipt paid yesterday. You know the grain sheaf stamp by now. It winks from the corner like a friend. He shows you another kind. A letter of reference. Says, Flora, also called Livia, is known to us. She pays what she owes. He writes quiet, between the names. Who is also. It is the Latin way to say, this is her other name. The line makes your shoulders drop. It is a small bridge between 2 lives. You ask if workers carry papers for the trade. He shrugs. He says some do, some don't. He points to a pile of tags and tablets that ediles keep. He says office lists live there. He says some women ask for a note to carry anyway. It helps on stormy nights. It helps with slow clerks. It helps the watch remember faces. Historians still argue whether a formal registration paper for prostitutes ever existed in your age, or if names stayed on office boards with no fixed card to carry. You look at the mix on his table and see how truth often sits in the middle. Lists at desks, notes in sleeves. He writes a libellus for a girl you know. It has 2 names, a work name and a home name. The work name shines like a scarf. The home name sits softer. The scribe copies both into his fee book. He stamps a little goat by his name. It is his brand. He says a goat sells better than letters. He is not wrong. You carry the packet to the banker. The banker opens his ledger. He writes the home name in the big line and the stage name on the side. He nods. He points to another page. A famous actress, once known as Volumnia, had a stage name too, Cytheris, a name linked to Venus. That is an apparent fact from old tales. A stage name opens some doors and closes others. Can be a charm. Can be armor. Here, the banker allows both names to coexist on the same page. He will honor her when he pays her, finds a cheat, or sends a letter. You pass the keeper with the bell. She smiles at the packet. She keeps a similar page. Work name, home name, ring seal, token number. She writes who is also on the side, like the scribe did. You feel how a tiny phrase makes life smooth. At a wall near the theater, a poster flaps. Names dance in red paint. Thais, Doris, Flora. These are stage names. They shimmer like silk. Poets love names like these. They use Delia, Cynthia, and Karina for their loves in slim books. That is a steady fact of Rome you can carry. It keeps an honest woman out of a spotlight she did not ask for. Keeps a poet's line clean and spicy. Your mouth twitches. Names are masks, and masks are tools. You duck into a stonecutter's shop. The floor is white with powder. The letter guides lean on the wall. He traces DM at the top of a slab to the gods of the underworld. He chisels slowly and softly. He adds, Bene Merenti. Well deserving. He says people pick these lines like a favorite song. He shows you 3 layouts. 1 with a long lifeline. 1 with a kind word. 1 with a job. You watch a woman decide on her words for later, in case. She points to freedwoman because she is proud of that. She points to friend, because love counts. She does not point to meretrix. She does not want the old stain on the stone. Historians still argue whether many women in the trade named their job on tombstones or if they let silence do the work while other truths stood bright. You see how choice makes a shield even when you are gone. He rubs chalk into a half-cut line, STTL. Sit tibi terra levis, he says. May the earth lie light on you. He He smiles when he says it. The chalk dust puffs like smoke from a small lamp. You like this line. Feels kind. He hands you a rubbing. It shows a seal ring next to a name. He says he can cut a tiny picture too. A dolphin for a girl with that signet. A wolf for a door. A sheaf of grain for a client who liked to tease about ediles. He grins. He says the goat is his. He will keep it. On the walk back, you pass a little shop where a man sells amulets and whispers with a sly face. He shows you a thin sheet of lead. Words crawl across it like ants. It is a curse tablet, a defixio. People hide them under floors or in drains and ask gods to tie a rival's feet or lock a thief's mouth. Quirky and a little dark, yes. One tablet mentions a cloak stolen at a bath. Bind the hands that took it, it says. Another asks for a lover to return. Names matter in these lines. People use stage names here too, to aim the spell without naming a home. You shiver and tuck your time jar closer. The shop bell rings. Wait! A voice calls. You grin. Even magic respects the bell. You stop at a graffiti wall. Someone scratched Felix loves Fortunata with a nail. Someone else wrote Iris was here with a heart. A wag added, and paid. You roll your eyes. Jokes never sleep. Yet the names sing. Fortunata, Lucky, Iris, Rainbow. These names live on in stone and air. They say, yes, I am here. And also, you cannot find me at my mother's door. The keeper points to a lease that uses, who is also again. It says, Aurelia, who is also Thais. It says the rent is due each market day. It tells the door lock belongs to the renter. It says the chest holds her signet, and the signet is hers. It threads both names in one cord. If a man tries to claim she has no right because he only knows one name, the lease lifts its chin. The judge will see the line and nod. A boy runs up from the ediles with a public list. Fines paid. Fines due. 2 names appear with quiet. A man who broke a chair. A woman who tossed a cup. The name pairs help catch the right face and free the wrong one. Your respect for small words grows legs. You peek into a back room at the theater. The manager keeps a roster, stage names in bright paint. Home names in wax on a board that only he sees. He pays by stage name at the door. He writes the home name for the banker. He keeps both straight, so wives, patrons, and neighbors do not get tangled. He says a star once tried to switch names to dodge a fine. The watch held up the who is also bored. The star paid with a theatrical sigh. You sit at the Popina while the barmaid writes a thank you note for the Mima. She signs with her stage name and then adds a small loop with her real one in tiny letters. She stamps her seal a dolphin. The host will know both. He will be careful with the first and private with the second. You like this dance. You want a seal and a loop to draw a line that a rude I cannot cross. A neighbor shows off a little wooden tag he wears on a cord when he travels. On one side, his work name. On the other hand, his home name. He flips it when he steps onto a new street. You chuckle. Joke too. You want one that says hungry on both sides to save time. You stand under a whitewashed wall where notices bloom like ivy. Fresh chalk squeaks. Old bronze glows dull. A clerk points at one tablet and taps the letters with pride. He chants lines you have heard in whispers all week. Augustus rules on adultery, public charges, heavy shame. That is a hard, mainstream fact. He also rules who can marry whom. Senators cannot marry freed women or actresses. A neat cage in a neat hand. You feel the city change under that pen. You read a smaller line. It says what you saw at the edile's desk. A declared meretrix does not get dragged into an adultery suit like a wife. Registration stings, but it offers some protection. The clerk shrugs. Bread and rules, he says, and stamps a sheaf at the corner like a baker's wink. You drift with the keeper past the forum to a little square where a man reads old edicts for coin. He sings of fire fines, bath fees, and gentle limits. You hear a name you know, Caligula. He taxed the trade. You counted those coins at the bath. He grins and adds Vespasian, who taxed the fuller's tubs and said, money does not stink. You saw that too. The river wind nods and brings a whiff of truth. A woman near you mutters about a time when the city cracked down after a theater riot. The prefect shut the show for a month. He sent a mime packing. Then he opened the doors again when tempers cooled. You remember how stars can stir crowds. You saw it at Floralia. Law and fun wrestle. Fun loses for a week. Then the drums return. The keeper steers you toward a bench. A scribe reads a rescript from a shelf of notes. Hadrian, Antoninus Pius. The words soften a hard place. If a free woman is forced, punish the man who forced her. If an enslaved person is forced into the trade, a judge can free her and punish the one who did it. The scribe says it slowly. He likes the feel of soft law. You want it too. It does not fix every night. It fixes this one if the right ears listen. Historians still debate whether those rescripts were frequently used on busy streets or remained unused, with people instead relying on shouts and neighbors. You think of the watchman's jar of good and bad shards. Sometimes the shelf wins. Sometimes the bell does. You cross a line in time with one step. A boy reads from a newer sheet. Caracalla gives citizenship to most free people in the empire. That is a significant, steady fact. It makes the court more accessible for many. It means a woman from a far town can file a claim here and not be pushed off for lack of a city title. You feel the city grow wider and closer at the same time. A deacon sweeps the church porch and pins up a small notice. He writes it with a cross at the top. If you seek shelter, it says, knock. A woman stands under it and breathes. Constantine now lets people free enslaved people in churches. Manumission at an altar is real under him. That is fixed in new lines. A freed woman, smiles when she hears it. She taps her cap charm. She says a friend of a friend got her papers from a font. Your chest warms, slow and full. Joke one. Your time jar sniffs the church smoke and files a note that says, nice, but I still win. The deacon adds another rule from the same age. Do not brand faces, the emperor says. The body carries God's image, so scars should not sit on a face. Brand the legs if you must. It is a quirky, human shift you can hold. A small kindness that smells like incense and fresh ink. You sit on the steps and listen to a bishop judge a minor quarrel. A girl says a keeper pressed her to the step after she said no. The bishop hears both sides. He tells the keeper to back off. He offers the girl a bed in a safe room for a week. He gives her a token for bread from a chest with a cross carved on it. The city still has ediles, guards, and grain stamps. Now it has this bench, this voice, and this chest too. More nets. More knots. You like knots. Historians still argue whether Constantine tried to shut all brothels or only houses near holy places and how much any closure stuck when rent was due. You ask around. Some doors moved a street over. Some doors lowered lamps. Some kept bright but hung rules like shields. Your bell still says, wait. Your guard still says, inside. The wolf scratch still grins. A woman in a saffron shawl whispers that a priest scolded her for sitting too near the front at a feast. She moved back one row. She kept her shawl. She kept her coin. The world tilts, not flips. The festival dims a little here. A hymn grows a little there. The theater still laughs. The tavern still cooks stew. The shrine to Venus gets fewer garlands. The porch of a church now receives more ribbons tied to saints, as they once were tied to a niche of Venus. The hands are the same. The hope is the same. The names on the walls change. Posted law makes you tilt your head. It snarls at pimps. Says no one may trap a free woman. It says no one may hold an enslaved person for the sale of her body. Penalties climb like a ladder in those lines. Someone stamps them with a cross and a palm. The stamp looks new next to the grain sheaf. 2 marks. 1 city. You hear a tale that a governor fined a man for shouting at a church door like he would at a brothel door. He said the door is a place of peace now. Keep your voice off it. New space. New hush. The man paid. He grumbled. He walked more softly next time. Guards learn new routes. Torch boys learn new songs. The keeper with the bell turns her rule board over. She adds a chalk line. No business near church steps on holy days. She does not need a fine to tell her this is smart. She earns goodwill with that line. She buys a cushion for her guard with the Goodwill. She calls it her Sunday pillow plan. Joke 2. Your sandals volunteer as test pillows and fail with squeaks. You ask about marriage lines under Christian emperors. A clerk says divorce got harder in some years. Husbands and wives had to show cause. Concubines still lived in the middle space. Some bishops scolded. Some couples married after years of living as two. Some did not. The clerk shrugs. Paper shifts, he says. Kitchens stay busy. A monk passes with a basket. He hands out bread to people in line under the porch notice. One girl wore a hairnet yesterday. Today she wears a plain scarf. She might go back. She might not. The point is, she could step inside and breathe. She had a place to sleep where no one would tug at her scarf. That is new. That is good. You walk the old lanes with fresh eyes. A poster near the theater warns actors who start riots. Threatens exile. It has a prefect's seal. A poster near the church offers a refuge bed. It has a deacon's cross. A poster by the edile still says, trim your lamps. It has the grain sheaf. 3 signs. 3 stamps. One city that keeps adding threads to the net. Historians still argue whether Christian courts gave women in the trade more voice or less and how quickly customs changed a street. Some see a long fade. Some see sharp turns. You see both in one day. The bell still rings. Wait, the token still counts. The banker still writes who is also between names. The shrine to Venus still holds a blue bead. The church box has a wooden token for bread. A girl may carry both in 1 week. A man tells you he moved his door 1 lane away from a new church. He lost 2 loud clients and gained 3 quiet ones. He says the watch now walks past with a nod and a hymn in his hum. He says the ediles still weigh his cups. He says the bishop sent boys with lamps on a stormy night. He blinks at that one and smiles like he found a coin in the street. You end at the wolf scratch like always. The guard taps the bell with 1 finger. Wait, he says, soft as a prayer. A woman steps out. She tucks myrtle into her sleeve and thyme into her hair. She kisses the blue bead at the old niche and touches the cross at the porch. She pays her tax to the ediles. She keeps her libellus with who is also. She lives in the seam while the cloth of belief changes color. Joke 3. Your brain tries to color code centuries and gives up, then draws a tiny goat in the margin and calls it a day. Night comes easily. Lamps burn low. The grain sheaf stamp on a board appears to nod. A cross on a bread token glows. Your foot lamp at home in the little, kept room waits to light 1 more page of this long city story. Emperors push. Bishops pull. Ediles count. The bell still rings. The door still locks from the inside. A woman still says no or yes and fair. And on more nights than not, the city now carries both old tools and new ones to help her be heard. You follow a road that slopes past gardens and low walls. Cypress trees point at the sky. Stone benches hug the path. Outside a gate, small tombs line up like dollhouses. You run a finger over letters. D. M. Bene Merenti. You have heard these lines. You breathe out and read slowly. A freedwoman thanks her patron. A friend thanks a friend. A husband thanks his partner for calling his concubine. The words are calm and firm. They sound like real life, not a poet's wink. You stop at a slab that names Alina, a keeper. The word sits plain, not dressed up. She paid for this stone. She left a gift at a shrine. She left a share to her girls. You hold that in your chest. Not every stone does the job. Many do not. Many people say freedwoman, wife, or friend, and leave it at that. Historians still argue whether silence hides work by choice or by fear, or if most women chose to list the ties they loved best. You bow your head to their choice. Far off, a mountain lifts its shoulder. You feel ash in the air, even if today is clear. Vesuvius buried Pompeii in 79 CE. That is a simple, steady fact. It kept walls, jokes, and price scratches safe for you to read. You step through the gate and onto streets that still hold ruts from old wheels. A dog trots past. It ignores the beware of dog mosaic that grins at the door. You do not. You grin back. On a narrow lane, arrows cut into plaster point to a wolf house. Le Painter. Stone beds. Small rooms. Frescoes with bright lines. Names scratched above doors. Rates scratched on walls. You saw this in the city, in living rooms. Here, the ash froze it. You read, and you feel how a place sets rules even when its people are gone. The doors are low. The lamps sit on ledges far from the curtains. The beds are stone, so fire fears them less. The same tricks, in older paint. A wall brags, "I was here." Another line adds, "I paid." You roll your eyes and smile. Old jokes never die. A rare scratch shows a number. 2 asses. 4. 8. Prices dance with pride and with bluff. Historians still argue whether the numbers were real menus or teasing ads and whether some lines were written by clients or by workers themselves. The truth may be both. Your palm flattens on cool plaster. You feel the room talk without a voice. Joke 1. You whisper to the wall, "Please don't upsell me on lamp oil." And the wall stays very professional. Off the lane, you step into a tomb garden. A stone table waits for picnic days. Families dined with their dead here. That is your quirky tidbit. They poured wine. They broke bread. They spoke names to keep themselves warm in the air. It feels sweet, not strange. It feels like a long hello. You picture a woman in a soft shawl sitting here, telling a girl about savings and seals and caps and bells. You pass a monument for a freedwoman who gave benches to the town. She paid for a show. She ran trade. She stood tall as a donor. Her stone is big. Her name is big. She is not a whisper. She is a door you can knock on. You think of the banker's stamp and the grain sheaf you kept seeing. Bread and rules anchor a life. They also make room for gifts that last. At a corner, a small niche holds a Venus with a worn smile. Blue beads lie at her feet under ash dust. You drop one more coin. It rings softly. You remember the little lamp shaped like a foot in the kept apartment. You hope it still glows. You remember the boys with torches and their easy songs. You remember the bell that says, "Wait." You remember the watchman's jar of good shards. You hold all this and feel a map in your ribs. A guide points at a scribble of a boat, a name, and a heart. He calls it graffiti. He says Pompeii has thousands of these scratches. More than 10,000 people say. It is a lot. It is a chorus. Some are dirty. Some are sweet. Some are ads. Some are squabbles. One line thanks a barmaid for honest measures. Another warns a man to pay for a broken cup. You smile. The chalkboard in your Popina smiled like this. 2. You kneel at a small grave with a simple cup glued to the wall. It holds a coil of glass beads like the ones in the niche. A name sits above it with quiet, who is also a work name and a home name, together. You have seen that little bridge on tablets. Seeing it on the stone pinches your nose and eyes. The scribe's trick became a family's truth. The city learned to carry 2 names for 1 heart. You pass a door with 2 worn, raised letters. L.V. The guide mentions that some people use LV for looper ideas. He also shrugs. It might mean a name, a family, a whim. Historians still argue whether signs with wolves and letters always point to brothels, or sometimes smile at luck. You like not knowing all. You want the city, leaving puzzles for your walk. A stone shows a tiny purse carved near a name. Another shows a small comb. Another shows a dolphin like the seal on your friend's ring. These pictures caught the eyes of those who could not read. They also stood in quiet pride for a life well done. You trace the purse. You think of the keeper's strongbox, the notch slips, the loan for locks, and the no knives past the bell line on her board. A chip of lead peeks from a drain mouth. A cursed tablet. You have felt these before. Someone asked water and the gods to grab a thief by the hand. Someone asked love to turn and walk home. You shiver, then breathe. You believe more in seals, bells, and neighbors. You think in loud lists by shrines and small stamps by ediles. You believe in torch boys who sing. Joke 2. Your jar of time takes a solemn vow to ward off both the evil eye and sour stew, and you decide that is a solid life goal. You find a tomb with a bench and sit. You take your shoes off and rub your feet. A line on the stone says, "Sit with me." You do. You think about stereotypes, loud and lazy. You think about jokes that turn people into masks. You compare them to the marks you touched this week. Seals, tokens, labelli, leases. Nets. Keys. You compare the poet's sneer to the banker's ledger and the judge's stamp. Who kept her house? Who sued and won? Who matched no with a guard at her door? Who saved to buy a cap and then helped the next girl buy one too? The legacy sits in your palm like a coin. It is not shiny. It has nicks. It still spends. Women in this trade held more rights than the picture in your head allowed. They could own. They could lease. They could sue. They could register to shield against one law while facing another. They could manumit and be manumitted. They could live as concubines, subject to the established rules. They could join the chorus in festivals. They could hang beads and knock for safe heat when days went cold. Not perfect. Not equal. More than the rumor. You stand and slide your feet back into your sandals. Your jar of time bumps your wrist. You pet it like a cat. You look at the wolf scratch on a nearby door. It grins the same grin you know from Rome. You touch the bell and do not ring it. You whisper, wait. Anyway, you think of a watchman's slow walk and his soft nod. You think of a grain sheaf that looked like it winked when a judge stamped it. A tiny goat is scratched on a wall by the exit. You laugh under your breath. Someone else liked that little symbol, too. Joke 3. You promise to leave a tiny goat in chalk on your grocery list later, to feel clever. You take one last look at the frescoes and the small rooms with their lamps. You step back into the road of tombs and benches. You pass a stone that says, "May the earth lie light." You say it aloud softly. It hovers on your lip. It floats over the garden and the bee that stumbles in a flower. You lift your jar and get thyme and myrtle at the same time. Your aediles would approve. Your goddess would smile. You walk on with your map clear and your heart quiet. The city hums. The bell waits. The door still locks from the inside. Let your shoulders drop as the road softens under your feet, and feel how the stones that once carried carts and sandals now hold only the slow hush of evening, and how that hush folds around you like a soft shawl that smells faintly of thyme and myrtle. Lantern light drifts against old brick, a warm breath here, a gentle blink there, and the bell you kept hearing all night is little more than a memory of a tap, a careful wait, and the promise that any door you choose can stay closed a little longer while you rest, while you breathe, while the room on the other side stays calm and yours. Let names settle like leaves after a wind. The bright stage name that helped on loud streets and the home name that held your rent and your key and your seal, both resting together without strain now, both doing their small jobs while you do none at all. The wolf scratch smiles at the edge of your mind. The grain sheaf stamp nods once and goes quiet. The boys with torches fade into fireflies, and their jokes drift to a murmur you cannot quite make out anymore and do not need to. Your little foot-shaped lamp gives a last patient glow, then lowers itself towards sleep, and the room grows round and safe and slow. Imagine the jar in your sleeve nestled on a shelf at last, the lid a little loose so the scent can lift and float and tell your breath, most kindly, that tonight is simple and soft and long. Somewhere a blue bead winks at a small Venus in a niche, and somewhere a watchman leans on a doorway and hums a tune that keeps bad dreams from finding your street. Stretch your fingers, then your toes, and let them be heavy as coins in a clay bank that no one will smash until morning. The city can keep its lists for a while. The judges can keep their stamps for tomorrow. The only rule you need now is the one your voice makes when it finally goes quiet. Close your eyes and let the last lantern fade, and let the air feel cool and easy, and let your pulse slide down to the same slow rhythm as the soft fan in your room. You are safe. You are still. You are here.